Ladies and gentlemen, Hebrews and Shebrews, welcome to the Life Podcast, where we inspire you, Torah observant believers, to thrive as peculiar people in a modern world. And the way we're doing that is we're interviewing people like you, who believe the same things you believe, and who are making a difference or a change in this world, or who have a powerful testimony. And this week's interview subject is no different. He's a naturopathic doctor, and he has cured many incurable diseases through natural means. He also has done tons of street preaching. He's had many miraculous interactions with the spiritual world, and he also is a national high school wrestling champion. He's going to talk to us about the importance of sleep, a good routine, and discipline in our daily lives. But he's also going to talk to us about all other sorts of great things that'll help you, hopefully, live a happier, healthier life. Thank you so much for watching. We cannot continue to do this without you. We need you to click like and subscribe. We need you to give us a 5-star rating on any podcast platform on which you're listening. The algorithms must know that you like what we're making so that more people can see it. It would mean the world to us.
This episode of the Life Podcast is brought to you by Shepherd's Crook Coffee, a Torah observant, family-run small business that responsibly sources their beans from farms who farm with ethical practices as far as their workers go, and clean practices as far as the chemicals and things. So you're getting beans that are not only roasted to order and absolutely delicious, but free of chemical pesticides and all those kinds of things that you don't want to be consuming. Even though you won't see an organic label on the bag, Greg and Laura, the owners, have taken great pains to make sure that they only source organic, cleanly grown coffee beans for your morning cup of coffee. Shepherd's Crook also offers a subscription service, so you never have to run out of coffee. I don't know if you've ever woken up and you're all groggy and you're all excited to make your coffee and then you realize you don't have any. They will ship you freshly roasted coffee once every 2 weeks or once a month, whatever your preference is. And once you've found your favorite roast, you can get a great big bag and have this big bulk bag of coffee. So when all your friends come over for Shabbat and you're staying up till 1 a.m. talking about the Bible, you'll have this beautiful organic coffee to give them. So go to shepherdscrookcoffee.com for 25% off of your first order. Use the code THELIFE.
Without further ado, I give you Dr. Darrell Carr. Dr. Carr, welcome to the Life Podcast.
Well, it's awesome to be here. I look forward to getting into this conversation and sharing my journey.
Thank you for coming, man. I appreciate it.
No problem.
So, okay, man, with you, we want to hear your testimony, but we also want to make sure we can pick your brain about health.
Okay.
So, but we should start with you. We should start with your testimony. Just, I guess, could you tell us basically how you got saved and then how you came into the Torah?
Yes. So, first and foremost, I'm a lover of Yahushua Messiah and trying to be a good friend of his, learning what that means, so that there's been an ongoing thing there. And I'll get more into that as we get through into this. But that's first and foremost. Number two, I'm a husband. I'm married to a beautiful wife, Ruth, which have a total of 9 children. So that's a big part of my life. And actually, my oldest son, Israel, and his wife, Carly, have a grandchild who's, I think, 8+ months. Gia's, I think 8+. So I'm a grandpa now.
How old are you, Dr. Carr? You don't have to tell us, but you don't look old. I can't believe you're a grandpa.
46, if I remember correctly. So yeah.
Wow, man. Cheers to you. 9 kids. Good job. We got to catch up with you.
So yeah, a husband, a father, and that's been a major learning experience for someone that used to be a perfectionist, and that's definitely helped build character and whatnot. So those are different aspects. A lot of people where I'm from in Indiana know my family as an athletic family. Both my brothers were state champion wrestlers. So my brother Jason won state finals when he was a senior. My brother Kevin won state finals when he was a senior. Matter of fact, there's a lady that was in the Olympics that got a gold medal this year. Sarah, and I can't even think of her last name, but her coach was the person my brother wrestled and beat in the finals to win his state title. He was actually voted the top wrestler of the state his senior year. My sister was actually even a state champion wrestler in freestyle. And then I got second in high school wrestling, but in college ended up being a 3-time All-American. Actually, my senior year winning nationals. So that was a huge piece. So the athletic component actually will probably tie into this later on. So being a national champion wrestler and the dedication and focus that it took to do that kind of ties into a lot of the walk that I think that is practical for someone who wants to Shema here and put it into practice and being, disciplined. So that's a big piece.
How did you get into wrestling in the first place?
My dad was just really involved when we were younger. He coached track and football and wrestling, anything he could do, and we just kind of actually wrestling was kind of funny because I was a convert from basketball. I was a basketball player. My dad started coaching wrestling. And so we would go to his wrestling practices after basketball practice. And so there was this little bitty guy on the wrestling team. And I'm pretty little now, but I was even smaller back then. And I was like, oh, that little guy, I can take that guy. My dad asked me, hey, you want to wrestle this little guy? And I'm thinking for sure that, I can take this guy. And for the next 30 minutes or so, he just manhandled me. And I was like, so intrigued how this little bitty guy just kind of tied me up in a knot. So I came back the next day thinking, I'm going to get back at him. I just got fascinated with it. And so I just kept coming back thinking I'm going to beat this guy that's been just manhandling me every day. And the same thing happened the second day and the third day. But I just naturally just got intrigued with it and kind of got into it. And it's basically like chess, but with your physical body, trying to figure out moves ahead of time and whatnot. So it just kind of intrigued me and it kind of stuck. So I ended up having to make a decision in high school between basketball and wrestling, and decided to do wrestling instead of basketball. So
how old were you when you started wrestling? That time when you wrestled that?
Middle school, that time, 6th grade middle school time.
My son Max wrestled last year and he was 5. Okay. And then he turned 6. But he was like, he didn't love it. And maybe he needs to get a little older. Yeah. But he did all right. He did pretty well.
Yeah, it's a interesting sport. And it really helped because I was a very shy, most of the things I was involved with was team sports. So as wrestling, as an individual sport, it helped me with a lot of my fears and anxiety and whatnot, because you have to go out there and compete. And people that knew me knew I was extremely shy. Couldn't give, if you had to give a talk in class, barely could even get through it. Or going out and competing, it's a stadium full of people, and you have to go out there and compete. So that was interesting, helping starting to address the spirit of fear and anxiety and whatnot, which
and now you talk to hundreds or more people on a stage about health. I've heard a couple of your talks just to scoop your story a little, but also to show that how much you've changed.
Yeah, praise Yah that, some of the ministry I'm involved in, it's in front of quite a few people, whether it be in a congregation or on the streets. You're always dealing with this issue of fear, anxiety, and, doubt. And so, and that was a big thing that, had to really kind of break that spirit of fear off in the name of Messiah. And that was a major breakthrough for me in my walk. But even wrestling helped get out there and do things. So it was huge. And I'll probably have more to say about wrestling because it actually ties in. I didn't realize it at the time, but there's a reason why I was in wrestling, because we truly are wrestling, not just with flesh and blood, but spiritually. There's some principles in wrestling that carry over quite well in the spiritual life, especially the whole idea of pressure and consistency and discipline. And we would get up, like in college, I worked out 6 times a day. It was like a job. So very focused. And now being, a spiritual warrior, getting up and praying and doing different things that make one hear the voice of Yah better. That it helps having kind of a background in that type of thing. A lot of people that have been in martial arts, not saying go out and beat up people or whatever, but there's some things we can learn from athletics if we take them and use them right. We can apply them, and they do carry over. And Yah's really been revealing that to me, like, hey, I want you to be a wrestler for the kingdom, to wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against these spiritual powers and whatnot. So there's been a lot of carryover in that. So that wrestling's actually been a big part of my life from when I was younger.
This episode of the Life Podcast is brought to you by The Way documentary, The Truth, Reformation 2.0 Apologetics book, and Truth Tracks. The Way documentary tells the story of our movement. This is the story of people who were trading Easter ham for Passover lamb and Sunday church for Saturday Sabbath, all in an effort to live like their Savior. It dives into their stories through their own voices and into the history and theology that show how the church got to where it is today. The Truth, Reformation 2.0 is the only book of its kind, an all-encompassing theological treatise that answers every question a mainstream Christian might have about why you want to keep Torah. And finally, Truth Tracks are small comics, beautifully illustrated, that use stories and scripture to remind Christians that once we are saved by grace through faith, we are called to live and do the instructions of Yah, his Torah. If you want to learn more about any of these products, go to thewaydoc.com. That's theway, D-O-C, like documentary.com.
Can you talk about building some of the self-discipline that you did? I know that we'll get to your whole story. This is important stuff. Can you talk about like how you were able to do it via wrestling? What was that process like?
Well, just for example, when we're in middle school, most kids are out during the summer, having their summer break or whatever. In Indiana, I don't know, a lot of schools are year round now, but we normally would have a summer break. And instead of being out playing, we were in practice as little kids, like twice a day, 2-a-day practices, just going through technique and just learning just to be disciplined and whatnot, just boring practice. And technique over and over and over again. And it's kind of like the Shema, like we're supposed to do this when we rise up and when we lie down, and just a continual cycle. And as we do that, it becomes part of you. Almost became a reflex. So when I was out on the mat competing, it was like instinctive. It wasn't just, oh, this person's doing this, now I need to move this way or that way. It became a reflex, and it was it was fast. And so carrying over to spiritual, that was a big part of it. I know now, for example, trying to get up daily for prayer. We used to get up very early for wrestling. We'd practice, get up probably around 5 or 4, and go into the school and practice and do shadow practicing. We're walking through technique and visualization, like literally seeing yourself walk through the technique, not so much the physical part of it, but the mental part of the sport. And really, even in that secret place in the morning, like even now, just seeking Yah and going before him in prayer, and also waiting upon him too. So that discipline is carried over into prayer and whatnot, and having the consistency. A lot of people don't see the results because they did it one time and realize you need to do it over and over again. So in our family, every morning and every evening, for the most part, we try to have devotional every single day. And so that has helped tremendously tattoo or ingrain it in our hearts and our minds to do it, and for our children as well. So that's been a big thing. So for me, that's been a huge thing, the Shema, just to impress these things upon our children. And so as a father, if any commandment I try to do is at least that one, the to instill that. So it started off, if just like starting anything is very hard at first, but once you get into it, getting in a rhythm, it becomes part of your nature. It's like automatic. A lot of times I don't even have to set the alarm clock anymore. I'll get up 3. Actually, last night was kind of weird. We got up earlier. The Almighty will wake you up at times, and just being stirred, and you'll wake up, and maybe you'll need to pray for someone, or something will come to mind. But having that discipline from athletics, I think there was a carryover there with that. So. And just the grit of wrestling is a lot of a lot of people in wrestling. There's a lot of contact, and I know one big difference from high school wrestling to college is that they're not used to pressure, consistent pressure. There's a lot of space, but in college wrestling, it is consistent. We call it hand fighting, where it's grinding. A lot of people aren't used to that, and they run away from that. Where in a spiritual sense, to have that consistency and that grit when things get tough, just stick with it, just grind through that, and there's fruit in that process, and you'll realize through those tough times you'll produce fruit in that. So that's been a major kind of thing for me and my family, is just getting in a habit. A lot of people just need to get their feet moving. And we'll talk about how to do that, because I think that's a big piece, because a lot of people we see this Torah that the scripture says is good, it's spiritual, but how does a fleshly person walk in a spiritual Torah? And I think a lot of people don't realize, that haven't come to this understanding, that it is a spiritual walk. So it's through the Spirit. It's literally through His Spirit that we're actually able to walk in a spiritual Torah or instructions and whatnot. So yeah, it's been an exciting adventure. So yeah.
You have 9 kids. I'm curious how you instilled discipline in them.
Yeah, they're wonderful. And I guess starting young is nice, because if they get in the habit of doing things, they're probably even more disciplined than I am, because they're so used to routine that they're just used to it now.
How'd you start the routine? What is the routine? Can you talk about the routine?
Yeah, we normally get up, and some mornings we'll have, like this morning we were in 2 Corinthians. We'll maybe read a couple chapters a day. And then in the evening, we'll continue with whatever book we're in. Some mornings we'll get up and we'll have 30 minutes of just free devotional time, where they can read. For the ones that can read, they'll read maybe just a scripture or something, or maybe they'll write down, if they had a dream the night before, they'll journal that down. We have a prayer journal to kind of write down things. That is one of the ways the Almighty speaks to us, is through dreams, and just being aware of that. Sometimes there can be some very key information. So in the mornings can be quite interesting at our house, because normally after our 30 minutes of self-time, we'll kind of open it up. If anyone had a dream or anything that stuck out to them, they'll kind of share that. So that could take a while with 8 children in the home. Even some of the younger ones, they have some interesting, their dream life is way more interesting sometimes than mine. So but very powerful. So we take note, especially if multiple people had the same dream in the same night. That is very fascinating. So we'll definitely take note of that and see if there's anything that correlates to our family, where we're at and whatnot. So yeah.
Are they all getting up at the same time as you? Or?
They don't get up as early as I do, but they'll normally get up probably, and I'm trying to think of what time, a few hours after. I normally get up around 5-ish every morning, which isn't that bad. Sometimes earlier, but normally we'll have 8:30, 9 o'clock. We'll normally have devotions and whatnot. So and the nice thing is too, since I work for myself, I have the freedom, which we're gonna probably talk about this piece and the whole. We do homeschooling, so our schedule is a little bit, we can kind of create our own schedule, which is really nice. And sometimes we'll have to bump it if there's certain events going on. We may bump the devotion to a little bit later, or have an extended devotion in the evening if for some reason something comes up immediately that wasn't planned. And that's the big thing. There's always something that comes up that you're not expecting. And the momentum's the huge thing. You want to keep the momentum. So if something throws you off a schedule, just try to get back on schedule as fast as you can. Because if you come to stop and have to start it all over again, it does take a while to get back in that rhythm. But momentum is it can work in your advantage, or if you come to a dead stop, you will definitely feel that.
Is your wife the same way as you? Does she have this personality to have a schedule, or more or less, or both?
Yeah, she is definitely goal orientated, like a list person. So if she sees it, she can do it. And yeah, I'm more of a night owl, and she's more of a morning person. So it's interesting because we had a dream recently where we were kind of instructed that we need to be praying all the time. So sometimes I'll get up super late or super early. Sometimes I'll be up late and get up even earlier and pray about something. I'll go to sleep. She'll get up and she'll take over in prayer after so it's just interesting how that will like relay in prayer. And that's been a big piece of what has been a breakthrough. And this has been, especially the last year and a half, a kind of a big breakthrough in our relationship with Yah and hearing his voice and really practicing the presence of him. It's been good. And obviously my wife is a multitasker, which is good and bad because she can do a lot of things. But yeah, it's been it's a learning experience. I'll put it that way. It's nonstop with 8 children. You're always every child's different, and so the way we do education is completely different. We don't put everyone in the same box. Their learning styles. And that's one reason why I probably had learning issues when I was growing up, because I was a kinesthetic learner. I learned by doing. And if you're just getting lectured to as a child, I just couldn't comprehend it. It was in one ear and out the other, where we'll try to use different teaching styles, whether it be through reading, which some of our younger ones don't, that's not their learning style either. Sometimes we'll have them do skits. They love to do skits. They love worship, singing. So we'll do that. Sometimes we will use media. And actually your film, we're probably going to be watching it here soon, the Christmas Question. We try to find Yah edifying material and have them watch, things that support, our beliefs, and just skills in different areas. Since we're homesteading, learning about different plants and animals and all that stuff. We have a little mini farm, used to have some lambs and chickens and a couple dogs and cats and whatnot. We have just different things going on. So our children really love nature, they're very interactive. So the teaching we try to be as interactive as we can. We'll have them read it. We'll have them put on a skit or play, and that way they kind of ingrains. They'll know that story about Abraham or this, or I know they did a skit recently, the Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and in the fire, and they were, acting it all out and whatnot. So it's kind of cool to watch their skits, and it helps them recall and get the stories in their spirit and their minds. So yeah, it's been an interesting time. We've really had a revival within our family, and it's been just growing. Basically our house is a house of prayer. We it's a sanctuary where we try to have that as a centerpiece, and it's been huge, because for Evangel, since I'm involved in that, one of the ways that I like to do Evangel is actually just inviting other families over. And if they just see our family, because a lot of times if I'm out by myself, they don't realize I have a family. They see all my family and see how we operate, and a lot of times they're so fascinated with that it speaks volumes to have order and children that are on fire for the Almighty. So, and from a young age, and see them pressing in and worshiping. I mean, a lot of times children will sing songs, but there's a difference between singing songs and worshiping. And so, sometimes I'll have people come over and we'll have our children minister, and that will break the ice. Sometimes I don't even have to say anything.
What do you mean? Talk me through that. How's that work? Like exactly what happens?
So we'll maybe have a family over for dinner, share a meal and just ask. They're just curious because we have maybe a shofar hanging out in the house or a menorah. What is that? What is this? And asking questions about those things. And after a while, we may say, hey, you guys, we'll kind of have the children share maybe a song. And if they're open to that, a lot of people are curious or interested in having children, sing song after song. Well, my children have quite a few songs memorized, so they'll just open up and put on a concert for the people. And I'm just sitting there just going, wow. And a lot of these songs are loaded with scripture. So if you're familiar with James Block, he has a lot of, basically it's just the scripture sung, like the Psalms and whatnot. So It's really cool to kind of let that minister, the word sung over people. And so it's really powerful. So it's one way to do like family evangelism is just let your light shine, invite people over, get to know people, and that's not really, just loving on people, and at some point, they're like, what are you doing? And they'll be curious about the walk we're walking. And so my wife and I, neither one of us were raised this way. So this has been a radical transformation for us. So this is just as new to us. And our children know this. We keep reminding them that some of these things that we're doing, we're learning as we're doing them. So it keeps it fresh for me. I feel like, it keeps it like childlike. You're always learning, and it's nice and refresh. It keeps things fresh. I'll put it that way. So it's been good.
Well, so you didn't grow up with this, really. How did you grow up? Give us your story, a short version of your story.
We'll try to keep it short.
Because we want to get into your profession as well.
My parents, they were, now being a parent, I realize how awesome my parents were. At the time, I thought maybe, I was being deprived or whatnot, but realizing, wow, my dad was always there. He was always trying to coach and whatnot. And trying to just being involved, and they would work around the clock, work overtime, so we would have things and whatnot. So I really appreciate, the effort my parents, put in to try to provide for us, even though there were times where we didn't have very much financially and whatnot. So there were some rough times. And this one particular summer, actually about the same time I started wrestling, almost, and around middle school, maybe a little bit before that, both my parents were working thirds, so we were kind of home alone. And so we were I have two brothers and a sister, so we were pretty rowdy. We're, wrestlers and whatnot, and pretty rough, I'll put it that way. And so I'm the oldest of the four, and my younger brother Jason and I, we just decided, our parents are here, let's just kind of walk the streets a little bit for the summer. And well, this car pulls up one evening and says, hey, you want to go to a party? And we're like, we both simultaneously looked in the car and kind of like, and we looked at each other, and we kind of non-verbally were thinking, we can beat these guys up if they try anything funny. So we'll go with you. We'll go to this party. So we go along to this party, and we get there, and boy, were we deceived. It was a Christian party, a Christian outreach. We were so angry because this was not the party we were thinking. And so we got there, and they had refreshments and pizza and pop and all that stuff. So we got there and cookies, and we're thinking, oh man, we got deceived. We're at the Christian party. And we had gone to different church things, but we had no really interest at that time in that. And so we just started eating a whole bunch of these things, and it's like, well, we might as well get something to eat while we're here. And well, after a while, they one of the gentlemen kind of gave the good news, but he gave a hellfire and brimstone message, which we never heard the bad news first of the good news. That the wages of sin is, death and all these different things. And basically, we're sitting here listening to this and thinking about putting ourselves. It was like me and my brother left the room and were before the throne trembling. I was almost trembling and going, I am a dead person. I am condemned. I basically judged myself and basically said, yeah, this doesn't look good. According to this guy, I'm going to hell. So we didn't even know there was a solution at the time. We just thought, this is horrible. So we were... so he gave the good news and presented Messiah from that context. And of course, we're like, yes, sign us up right away. We believe it. So we repented and put our faith. At that time, we knew him as Jesus. But we put our faith, and we went home and told my other two siblings. Well, I think the next day or maybe a day or two after, they went to the same, I think it was a week of little revival meetings. Same thing happened to them. They made a decision as well. Well, we went home that week, I think it was that week, and we didn't know nothing. We didn't know we had never read the Bible. We didn't know nothing, but we felt in our heart that we needed to go through all our stuff in our house, like all our offensive clothing, all our offensive music, which basically was just rap music and all of this secular music. And we just gathered all this stuff as young people and threw it in the backyard in a pile and started on fire. We just burnt it. Not even realizing in the book of Acts later on when we would actually read the Bible, they actually did that. They took their stuff, their witchcraft, and just set it on fire. Well, we did that same thing. And it's really neat because it was in my spirit, I almost heard the Father said, "You are mine." And so for me, that was a huge seed. The only problem with that is, just like in a lot of people, they make a decision for Messiah, they're on fire, there was no discipleship. So we had all this fire, but didn't know what to do with it. We didn't know what to do. So we're excited about Messiah, we're excited about all this, but there was really no discipleship. And so after a period of time, we had actually moved from that town to another one. We were still got more involved in the wrestling, and really athletics became our thing that we were kind of involved in.
How old were you for that experience?
Around middle school, school age. And then went into high school. Like I was saying, we were involved in athletics. So that was our thing, especially wrestling became a major piece of our family. And then I went off to college, and that's kind of a funny story too, because after graduating, I thought I was going to go to college, but didn't really think about it too much. We grew up around Lake Wawasee, which is a huge lake up in northern Indiana. And we basically, that summer before I went to college, I was a Laker. So I basically was on the lake all day long. We would go ski and whatnot. And the day before college started, we were out in the lake. I think we went skiing in the morning, and we're coming in, and we see this big giant, wrestling coach is Tony Vaughn. The guy is enormous, looks like just huge, heavyweight, big giant guy, standing on the pier, our dock. And we're like, who is that guy? And we come up to him, and he goes, "Hey, Darrell, yeah, you want to go to college?" And I'm like thinking, yeah, maybe, yeah. But then he kind of said, "Hey, do you want to wrestle in college?" And of course, I'm like, "Well, yeah, I want to wrestle. Yeah, sure, I'll wrestle in college." He said, "Well, class starts tomorrow, so let's go. We can go and sign you up." And next thing I know, I'm getting off the lake. I followed this guy down at Manchester College at the time, and the next morning at 8 o'clock, I'm in philosophy class, and I'm thinking to myself, how in the world did I get here? So it's just kind of funny how now that I look back, I'm like, all these doors opened up, and the provisions were just really interesting. But long story short, moving to college and again, not having that discipleship, even though Manchester was advertised as more of a Christian college, a lot of the classes really were quite even secular. And one of my majors was religions, so we studied all these world religions. But even when it came to scriptural things, there was kind of an evolutionary base and just dismantling of the scripture. I remember being in a class specifically on Genesis, and verse by verse, basically saying that's not true, that's not true, that's not true. So it was me versus the professor and 7 other people every single day in this very small class later on. I'm like, wow, this is insane.
No one believed?
They didn't believe the scripture as it was written. They basically had their own view of it. And later on, I would find out that one of their objectives was to help promote gay marriage in the state of Indiana, to actually finance it. And I was blown away when I found that out, for that people that were investing in the school, that maybe they didn't know it, but there was an agenda to actually promote that. And that's more common than people realize. And at that time, it was still illegal for that. Long story short, being in that environment, even wanting, a believer, but not in a believing environment, I had a lot of doubt, every class since I was in sciences, evolution, all that stuff, it just weighed on me. And long story short, being around the wrestlers, I love my wrestler buddies, but our lifestyle was not the best. And after a while, that actually rubbed off on me. And obviously I wasn't innocent either, but had the college lifestyle, just partying pretty much every day. It ended up being almost every day, and just living, doing whatever I wanted to do. And this one, my sister came to my apartment, and I don't even know how she got there, but she had put in my VHS player at the time. That's how long ago this was. Dr. Dino, she put it in my place. Somehow she got in my apartment. She was there. I was getting ready to go to a party, and she plays this video, and I'm like, where did she go? Where'd my sister go? And she put this video in. It's like, oh, she got this Christian video thing up on my thing. And it stopped me in my tracks, because I can't even think of Dr. Dino, who Kent
Hovind.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes, I think that's right. I was listening to this, and I was literally getting ready to go to a party and just listening to this. But what he was saying was my spirit resonated with it so much. It was like, wow, if this is true, if the scripture is true, every single word from the very beginning, this changes everything. This goes against everything that I've been taught in college, basically, that this is done away with, that's done away with. And that also was a major seed for me. Also, my senior year, that same year, I was a senior in college. I had gotten second place in college wrestling as a freshman, and I had placed third one year, so I was a 2-time All-American. I never won the national titles in college, but my senior year, I ended up getting severely hurt. Matter of fact, I was already scheduled for surgery before the D1 national finals. I had a massive right shoulder injury, what's called a bank heart lesion. The rotator cuff was completely torn. Bicep tendon was messed up. I had 3 things wrong with my shoulder. I could not even feel my right hand. Where it was in space. So they actually strapped me up like in looked like a straight jacket. So I was wrestling matches with one arm, and I'm right-handed. So it was my not dominant arm. And so this is actually a miracle in of itself. And so, long story short, I ended up being a wild card. At the regional, they only take, I think, 1 or 2 wild cards. I got voted in to be in the nationals as a wild card, and I was a 7th seed. So it means I had to beat the 5th, the 5th seed, the 3rd seed, the 2nd seed, and the 1st seed at nationals to win it. And it was, even at that point, it was like the Almighty was saying, you've been trying to win this nationals in your flesh for 13 years. And it was basically like, step back and let me have, and basically, even at that time, not even kind of had drawn away from the Almighty, but towards the end of the season, I was really pressed, just kind of seeking. And it was almost supernatural. I ended up winning the nationals with one functioning arm, my left arm. So this was absolutely incredible because even my athletic, the staff that was with me, no one could even believe I won because they knew I was already scheduled for surgery. Because my right arm wasn't even working at all. Matter of fact, even the doctor that did the surgery on my shoulder, he said it looked like you were thrown from a motorcycle. He says it was one of the worst surgeries, or one of the worst surgeries I've ever had to perform on an athlete because he was the doctor for the Colts and the Pacers and whatnot. It was absolutely incredible. And long story short, I actually pinned the returning national champion in the finals. And so, but honestly, I couldn't even boast in it because I knew it wasn't me. There was almost like a supernatural power. It's the only way I can explain it. It was just absolutely surreal. Actually, right before I stepped out on the mat, this is really interesting. I had a dream a long time ago when I was younger that I was by this trash can. It sounds weird. I was by a trash can and I was in a tunnel underneath a stadium. And of course, I was an athlete, so I was always in stadiums and whatnot. So that's not a big thing. But it was kind of like what some people would call deja vu. But when I was, right before I was about to step on the mat, I walk up to this trash can right before and I look over and I realize I have dreamed this before, this whole thing. So here I am, about to step out on the mat, and my brother's next to me, and I go, "Hey, Jason, I've been here before. I've done this before. This trash can was here." And and he's like, "Darrell, you're getting ready to go out on the mat." I'm like, "Yeah, I know," but I was like, "Whoa, I just remembered this scene." It was just really crazy. Anyways, long story short, I won the match. It was good and bad. It was good that I won, but it's also bad because I realized that the way in which I won, it was horrible because I got to the result that I wanted, but the way I did it was wrong. And I had a lot of repentance to do later on, to be people trying to get to that place. The way in which it was done was just wrong. And so
what'd you do? Will you tell us the details?
I was just mean. I just didn't care about other people and just trample on people. Didn't really respect my coaches. Just wanted that. And so when I looked at my trophy and my plaque and whatever, I looked at it and go, "Wow, 13 years for this?" And that glory is over with. Wow, that's pretty in vain. And it just made me think, wow, all that for this? It was just really interesting. So I ended up graduating, and it was really interesting how all these things set up for what eventually happens where I make a rededication. But the school, one of my majors was teaching, and the teaching bubble had absolutely collapsed. Like there was no teaching jobs in my major at all available. So here I am looking for teaching. All the teachers were competing for the same job, and it was like so many applications. They were doing so many interviews. Very few people were getting jobs. And all of a sudden, the very place where I heard, actually had the message, where that guy had preached the message and I had repented, that church was hiring for their school that they had. Now, it was a private school. It doesn't pay like, a public school. So, but I heard a voice within me say, "Go back to where you first heard." And so it was weird because I was going to go put an application somewhere else, which I ended up doing anyways. But I went to that church at the time and put an application. It's like, "Hey," actually I didn't even put an application. I just asked if they had any teaching jobs open. And the secretary at the time said, "No, there's nothing available." But I was about to walk out the door and they turned me back and said, "Hey, no, there is actually something." So I ended up actually going there and actually for a very short season teaching there. And in that time, one of the nice things was at least they got in the Word. They were getting in the Word daily. And then finally I kind of like, "Hey, I need to recommit." I've been in college, I've been away. And so I got baptized or rebaptized at that point as just kind of a recommitment. And one of the things I was like, I'm going to start reading the Bible. I'm going to start reading the Bible every day, which was awesome. But it was also interesting when you start reading every day because you start seeing things that you wouldn't have saw before. And just being not having an agenda. Just when you commit to reading, you realize, or at least I did when I started going to fellowship, that I would follow along in the scripture as they were going through. I remember this one time I was at fellowship and they were in Romans 3 and basically saying, oh, the law's done away with, da 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 da. But the very last verse says, do we make void the law? And you're like, no, we actually establish it. The very last verse. Well, they didn't read that last verse. And since I was following along in my Bible, I caught that. I was like, wait a second. The message is saying one thing, but this verse is saying something else. And so week after week, I started catching things like that, where it would be like, well, the word says this, but this is it. So I was honestly just confused. I was like, okay, maybe I'm misreading this because it's saying one thing, but I'm hearing something else. And so that made me question a lot of things. In the meantime, as I was getting more involved in outreach and evangel, I started doing more with any form of evangelism, whether it be passing out tracts, street preaching in the cities, in Seattle, in Canada, all over the place. So just doing evangelism any way possible, just on fire to share the good news. And long story short, one of my mentors at the time, I had this question: what are we supposed to do as believers? What is required of us? That was my big question. It's like, what is it we're supposed to be doing? We're believers now, but what do we do? And so when I read the instructions, especially the Sabbath really stuck out to me. And I had heard people on the street bring it up, like, what about the Sabbath? And whatever. Like, oh, Colossians 2 says, don't let no one judge you in meat, drink, or, Sabbath or holy days, and I know the scriptures very well from that perspective that I was in at the time, but it made me start questioning, like, what is required of us? So I asked my mentor at the time, I was like, hey, it's like, what about the Sabbath? Is the Sabbath done away with or not? And I was actually shocked because he told me, he's like, men will say it's done away, but no, it's not done away with. And I was like, what? I was like, that wasn't the answer I guess I was looking for. So I kept asking other people. I was like, okay, I'm going to ask somebody else because I guess that wasn't the answer I was looking for. And over a period of time, actually some supernatural stuff happened. Well, maybe I should back up just a second and how I came into Torah. So I was wrestling over this, especially the Sabbath. Long story short, I'm living in Winona Lake, Indiana. I'm graduated. Actually, I had taken over a business at the time. There's just a lot of new things happening in my life. And I was renting a house that two other people were. It was a house divided into thirds. And this one day, I was walking through my apartment. I was in the upstairs in this apartment. And all of a sudden, when I was walking through in the middle of the day, I encountered a force, literally walked, and it stopped me in my tracks. And this is the most bizarre thing. And I was like, what in the world is going on? And I didn't know at the time. I was like, what, like, why can't I move? This is kind of weird. Like, what's going on here? And literally in my flesh, I get irate and angry, and I start just pushing as hard as I can. And I'm a collegiate wrestler at the time, and actually training for the Olympics. And so I'm at my physical prime, and I am pushing as hard as I can. And the apartment I'm in has carpet, and I'm starting to almost rip up the carpet. I'm ripping up the carpet almost with my feet. And I'm like, this is not normal. And I look up, and I kid you not, it was like my eyes were almost open, and I almost saw a translucent something opposing me in the flesh. And the only way I can, not to recommend watching The Predator, but this like phasing in and out, that's how, so some of these people making some of these movies, they must have seen some of this stuff. But anyways, long story short, I kind of am freaking out. And at that time, I knew Messiah as Jesus, but I would learn his name later on as Yahusha. But at that time, I just I think I said Jesus, but it was more of a shock. I mean, I was more of a shock than anything. I don't even think I was rebuking. I was more in shock. Well, the thing lets go of me, and I'm like, whoa. And in my flesh, I think, wow, I'm in major trouble. Am I demon possessed? What is going on? I am repenting of everything I can think of. I am distraught. I'm freaking out because this whole encounter is happening. So I'm leaving work that day, and I'm just like, whoa, I'm in serious trouble. This is horrible. Well, I had not really talked to my neighbors hardly at all. It's like one of these things where I lived there, but I never really engaged with my neighbors. Kind of interesting. I was an evangel and not even reaching out to my neighbors that were living below me. But it was this couple. I guess they weren't married. I find out later they weren't married. They're just living together in the lower part of this house. Well, I was leaving to work that morning, and I asked the couple there, I was like, hey, did anything happen in the apartment last night or anything weird happening? And I had never talked to them before. This is my first encounter with them, and I'm asking them if they see. So it's a weird question, but is there anything weird happening? And the girlfriend said no, but the boyfriend just looked at me. He didn't say a single word, and I was like, that was weird. So anyways, I go off to work, and I come back on a lunch break, and I go up to my apartment, the stairs, and all of a sudden, like 1 minute later, I hear this footsteps like up and he's at my door knocking. He's like, hey man, can I come in and share something with you? I'm like, yeah, sure. He's like, what I'm about to tell you is like kind of creepy. So I'm like, well, at this point, I'm open to hearing some things because my experience in the last 24 hours has been crazy. And he said, well, my girlfriend went to India to find a spirit guide, and she came back and she actually got one, and the thing manifested in our house downstairs at night before both of us, and we were screaming. He said, did you hear us last night screaming? And I'm thinking to myself, no, I didn't hear nobody screaming at all. I didn't hear nothing. And he said, yeah, the thing manifested, and we were terrified. Well, after my encounter, I could believe what he was saying. I was like, there was something in this house, and I didn't realize the importance of boundaries and whatnot. Anyways, long story short, the guy asked me, he said, what do you think, I should do? And I was like, dude, you need to get a new girlfriend. So he ends up leaving her, which that was a good move. And I'm going to be honest with you, anyone that has an experience like this, they become a believer. Hands down. He actually repented. He became a believer Messiah, because if your eyes are open to the evil side, there's a good side. So long story short, I had one more encounter in the house, and this time I knew what I was dealing with, and it actually stopped me and kind of stopped me physically again. So I'm about ready to rebuke it, and it closes my mouth. And so I'm like, oh man, this is crazy. So I think the name of Messiah to this thing, and it lets go of me. Then I said, I rebuke it until it not come back anymore in this house in the name of Messiah, and never had an issue with it since. I moved from that place, of course, over that time, but the spiritual realm is very real. So I'm wrestling over this whole, what should I be doing, and Sabbath and all this stuff going on. I had this crazy encounter. And one other event actually happened. I'll back up too. During this time, that still small voice that told me to go to the school that had said, you are mine, when I was younger, had told me in my hometown of Warsaw, Indiana, to pull over. This is the middle of the work day, like right in the middle of the work day, to pull over at the library and go on the specific street corner and just start preaching. Now, doing street evangelism, I'm used to doing that, but not necessarily by myself. Normally we'd have other people with us, and right in the middle of the workday. But it just wouldn't go away. It just kept like telling me to pull over. I want you to go preach on this street corner right now. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do this. So I pulled in the library, went to the street corner, and I think I was talking on Matthew 5, Matthew 7. that not everyone that says, Lord, Lord shall enter the kingdom, but those who do the will of the Father. There'll be many in that day that say, Lord, didn't we do all these wonderful things in your name? He says, depart from me, you who practice lawlessness. And I was actually just preaching, that message. And all of a sudden, out of the corner of my eye, I see someone across the street, catty-cornered to me at the gas station, looking dead at me, like just shaking. And like, and my first reaction being involved in street ministry is like, oh, brother, this is not good. This guy looks like he's going to come over here and cause problems. So anyways, I could just keep preaching. He crosses the street where I'm at. I'm like, oh, great. I can see it now. Street preacher gets in a fight with a homeless drunk person. And I'm like, this is not good. And I just keep going. And all of a sudden, someone comes out of the library behind me and goes up to that guy and starts talking to him. Well, I think nothing of it. I'd like, okay, I feel like it's released. I'm there probably no less than 15 minutes. And I'm like, okay, I feel like I'm done. And so the guy that came out of the library waved over to me and said, hey, come over here. And I went over to where they were at. He says, this guy is not from this country. I believe he's somewhere from South America. And he says, he said he crossed the street and he heard you speak in his language. And at the time, I'll be honest with you, I'm embarrassed to even say this now, but at the time, I'm like, I don't speak any other language. So, I mean, obviously this guy's on drugs. I mean, that's what I'm thinking. And I'm like, what? What language does he speak? And I think it was Spanish or whatnot. And I'm like, I know a few words in Spanish, but I definitely wasn't speaking in Spanish. I was speaking in English. So I'm like, okay, this guy's totally lost it. But the guy was shaking. He was like absolutely trembling. I'm like, okay, this is weird. He's like, I think we should pray for this guy. And so we took him through right there on the street and prayed for the guy. Well, this hasn't even registered me what's going on. I'm like, I get in my car, drive back to my apartment. I'm thinking, Father, you told me to go there. Like, why? I mean, I don't get it. I mean, no one was there but that crazy guy on the street. And it just dawned on me. It's like, in the book of Acts, it says they heard they heard in their language them speaking. So this was a really interesting thing to me because I'd never experienced this on the street. I mean, even though, at least from my point of view, I'd never, I wasn't speaking in any other language. But that person, their testimony was they heard me in another language. When I was like, okay, wow, this is interesting. Didn't think too much about it. Just kind of left that there. But all this stuff is going on at the same time. So there's this encounter with this entity, the question about Torah, the question about what we should be doing. And then the most terrifying thing of all that, there is something even more. This actually made me terrified to my core. I'm in my house. All this is going on. And in my spirit, in my ruach, that voice, this is like an internal audible voice, basically told me, he's like, my word is not done away with. The fear of Yah, like literally entered me. I was like, whoa. I was like, and I looked at the scripture like it was alive. That Old Testament that I had just kind of disregarded, it was like, uh-oh, my word is alive. My word is not done away with. I'm looking at that like, that's like the ocean. I don't know nothing about that. And it was just like a starting, like starting over. And so he had been revealing different things. And I took that to mean not only is my word not done away with, but when I looked at the Sabbath and whatnot, so I was like, I don't understand this. This goes against what I've kind of been brought up and thought and taught and in college and everything else. But that voice was so powerful that I was like, you know what? I'm going to just start. I'm going to start keeping Sabbath. I don't even know how to keep Sabbath. I'm going to start keeping it. The first time I kept Sabbath, I was like, it was actually kind of stressful because I didn't know what I was doing. I was like, okay, what am I doing? I don't even know. And being a workaholic, normally working 7 days a week all the time and going to like not working a day in the flesh, it doesn't make sense. Like, well, why am I doing this? But one of the coolest things that happened in the first 7 years that I kept Sabbath is I literally did not get sick. I mean, my physical body, I had a lot of physical things going on. I literally did not, it was almost like the Almighty like healed me, like literally for a whole Shemitah cycle almost of my own Shemitah cycle. Like I didn't get sick. For me, this was a huge thing because every winter I would get sick. It was almost 2 months in time, like if I'd say like the total amount of time. And so this, to me, this was awesome. I was like, wow, just by resting, just by trusting in him and not worrying about stuff and keeping this day, like I just saw the blessing in doing that. So it was like really powerful. And I didn't know it at the time, but one of the first scriptures that I ever cognitively remember opening the Bible and reading was Isaiah 53, where it says, by his stripes we are healed. And when I read it, I was like, this is the Old Testament, but that sounds like Messiah. Not realizing that would probably play a role in my even profession, what I would be involved in later on with health, not just from a physical point of view, but from a spiritual point of view as well. So this journey has been amazing, and just how step by step Yah has revealed that still small voices reveal things and literally given instruction that I can't be talked out of, I guess. It's been so powerful. And there's been step by step. So when I'm saying I wasn't raised this way, it literally was not the way I was raised. It's kind of like step by step. And even when there's been new things where he's been revealing, that's why I say it's a non-ending growing day by day, year by year. He reveals more. Especially there truly is a revival, even in a Hebrew roots movement. And I think the church movement and the Hebrew roots movement is very interesting because one has forgotten the Torah, the instructions of life, and I don't think on purpose, but even in the Hebrew roots movement, some people, like a drunk driver at the wheel, they overcorrect, and they kind of, a lot of them have, their focus is off Messiah and the Spirit, and it's not, they wouldn't say they deny the Spirit, but it's for them it's truth and spirit, but it's really spirit and truth, and we need both of these things. I like telling people it's kind of like the easiest way for me to explain it is it's like a train on a track. The track, the railroad, that's the Torah. That is the way of life. And the train is that spirit, that power, the very spirit of Yah empowering us to go on that path, that journey. And if you don't have the track, you're going to derail and cause a lot of injury. But at the same time, if you just have the track and no train, you ain't going anywhere. So you need both of these things. And so there is a revival right now in our movement. I think a lot of Christians are fed up. They're asking the same question I was asking, like what are we doing? Why are we having the same problems over and over again? We're always coming back up here to pray for this, healing for this, and not realizing when we actually enter into the covenant, there's blessings when we enter into that. And even when it comes to health and wealth and all those different things. At the same time, there's a revival in the Torah community going, hey, the spirit thing, walking in the gifts, walking in the fruit, and I think, as Acts 2 says, and Acts 2, Joel 2 says, in the last day, he's going to pour out his spirit. And these gifts, a remnant's going to rise up that's going to be walking in spirit and truth power, dunamis power, to be witnesses of him. And I believe that's where we're at right now in time. And for me, it's been exciting because coming from, there's just a lot I can say about it.
That's probably the best analogy of spirit and truth I've ever heard, because it gets across the weakness and the purpose of both of them. I mean, the weakness of not having one and the purpose of both. Yeah, and we need both of them. The two go. It's what he's put together, let no man separate. The two go together, and it's powerful, and a lot of people are waking up to the truth. And I just want to thank you for your videos too. By the way, for those watching this podcast, if you have not checked out Luke's video on
is it the Christmas question or
Yeah, with 119, but
you have to check that out. It is so good. So there's so many things that we have, there's so many traditions. Traditions aren't bad in themselves, but there's a lot of things we picked up that, like, why am I doing this? And it's just really good to evaluate, is this in the Word? And if it's not in the Word, why am I doing it? And does it violate the Word? And so that video that you produce is absolutely fabulous for someone that is investigating truth, that wants to go, why are we doing these different things? And so I highly recommend anyone watching this, check out Luke's video. It is absolutely fabulous. So
thank you, sir. Praise Yah. And that was a team thing. Those guys really helped and make it good. But thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Wow. Whoa. I didn't know we were going to get into all the. I didn't know your journey had all these spiritual things happening, all these supernatural events. All right, how did you get into, I want to ask you how people reacted to Torah and everything, but I also want to know how you got into medicine, how you got into doing this, because you helped me personally when I took antibiotics after I had this operation, which was part of the reason why I wrote that book, The Truth, by the way. And the antibiotics messed up my guts. And you were like, I think this will help you. And it did. So anyway, thank you.
Been a major journey. I mean, back to that Isaiah 53, which is, a lot of people know that verse, by his stripes we were healed. At the time, my grandma had MS. So we had a family. I had my own personal health issues. My grandma had autoimmune MS, for those who are familiar with that, which attacks your nervous system. Your own body attacking it. It's an autoimmune disease. And so I was always kind of fascinated. I mean, so they had her like a guinea pig back in the day, where they did everything you could think of in the medical field, and it just wasn't working. So she decided, well, maybe I should try natural things. So she was really the first one that got my mind thinking about natural health. And so just even taking vitamins and minerals, and your diet may make a impact on your health. I also had, when I was training for the Olympics, I had a trainer, because I thought diet was absolutely worthless. I mean, I'm just be honest with you. As an athlete, at the level that I was at, to me, diet was very minimal. But when I started training for the Olympics, I had a very good trainer. And to my embarrassment, we were in some very intense training sessions where we were doing advanced balance training on a Swiss ball, doing squats on a Swiss ball with weight in a controlled environment for reflex training, and with some serious weight on the bar, doing front squats on a special Swiss ball designed for squats. Well, you can't do this without having your core working properly. Well, the morning before my workout, I actually, again, I wasn't in Torah, I wasn't healthy at all, drank a 64-ounce big gulp before my workout. I didn't eat anything, I just drank this big gulp, and went into the workout, and my trainer was really good. He could tell I couldn't balance on the ball, because I had just did this workout the week prior flawlessly, absolutely perfect. We did what's called 5-0-5 tempo, where you're doing really slow squats, 5 seconds down, 0 at the bottom, 5 seconds up, for 8 reps, 8 sets on a ball with weight. So, and not having any issues whatsoever. Then drinking a big gulp and coming back the next week and not being able to even kneel on the ball, let alone stand on the ball, let alone squat on the ball. I could not stabilize my core. And I'm thinking, what is going on here? My trainer asked me, he's like, hey, did you have anything to eat? I'm like, no, I didn't have anything to eat. And that's true. He's like, well, did you have anything to drink? And I was like, well, yeah, I had this big gulp. And he was like, well, do you know that, the nerve that innervates your, digestive tract also innervates the muscle that crosses that area, and that, if you cause inflammation to your digestive tract, it's going to actually cause inhibition or turn off your muscles of your core that surround that area. And I never thought about that before. And here I am, a exercise science person, and it's like a light bulb went on in my head, and like, wow, if I had not experienced it hands-on, again, kinesthetic learner, and going, wow, I was able to do flawlessly and by pure pride, I could normally do things, could not do it. Is like, wow, maybe there's something to this diet thing that I haven't been paying attention to. Well, later that week, I went back, worked out, didn't drink a big gulp, and was able to do it flawlessly. And it made me go, huh. So I actually started to look into diet a little bit and realize, wow, a lot of my health issues may be diet-based. And obviously, coming to Torah, I learned a lot more about food and, how the Creator has set things apart, things that, actually are food, things that aren't, and it's just blessing when we get in His cycles. We're blessed. I mentioned Sabbath before. Matter of fact, Sabbath is really interesting because it's the first thing that's mentioned as holy in the scripture. So the scripture says that Yah is holy. It says we are to be holy too. It says that places are holy, and time is holy. But the first one of all those is actually in Genesis 2. There's this word Kodesh, a form of that word, for the seventh day, that He actually set it apart. It's that word, a form of the word Kodesh. So the Sabbath is completely set apart. So He's set apart. He wants us to be set apart, and there's set apart time. There's set apart places as well. So, and in Peter, it talks about, he quotes, be holy as I'm holy, which is actually a quote from Leviticus 11. And matter of fact, it's funny because in Peter it says, in all manner of conversation. Well, that's in everything you do. Why is Peter quoting from Leviticus 11 on the food laws? So it always was like, wow, that's interesting. The cross-reference, be holy as I'm holy, is in Leviticus 11 for the food laws. And so Peter's saying being holy in all manner of conversation. That's your lifestyle. Is he saying, by quoting from Leviticus 11, that even the things you eat need to be set apart in every area of your life? Even what you eat needs to be set apart. So it really took me on a journey to look at this stuff and go, wow, this is just, and for every reason. See, a lot of people don't realize this. The law is good for every reason, for everyone involved from every direction. It is good for everybody involved. And if you follow the Torah, it is the way of life. And it is so powerful. And a lot of people have no clue. So studying it from a health perspective, it blows my mind. I'm still learning, going, no, it's just better. Even if you don't understand, it's just better to obey. The understanding will come later. And there's little details and nuances in the law. It's like the master, the creator of the universe, Yah, I can see why He didn't take the time to explain it to us, because it would take too long to explain. He said, just do this, you're going to be blessed. If you don't, you're going to be cursed. And now that we're understanding the why, it's like, whoa, this is awesome. We're getting an insight into maybe the mechanisms of why these laws are the way they are. And that's really, by the way, when the scripture says, we could sum up the whole law with one word: love. I keep hitting your mic here. Love Yah. And if you want to have it, two commands: love Yah and love others. And people want to focus on those two: love Yah, love others. But the question, well, how? How do we love Yah? How do we love others? Well, that's what the Torah is for. It is the how-to book on how to love Yah and how to love others. And so those other laws give us clarity and distinction of how we are to love Him and to love others as well. We're not going to steal from someone else if we love Him. But without the law, we just do whatever we want. And maybe we think in our mind we're loving others or loving Yah. And so, the whole health journey, the health and the wealth. There's three areas that I think are been put on my heart even this year: is health, wealth, and our relationships. Because most people, those are the three areas they struggle with. They have relationship issues, whether it be family, maybe there's unforgiveness somewhere, because that will lead to health issues. And health issues lead to wealth issues. So the three are interconnected. And it's really fascinating because in Acts 1, a lot of people know Acts 1:8, where it says, and Messiah tells his disciples, and you wait here and you'll receive power. And that word in Greek is dunamis, power to be witnesses of me. Well, there's another place actually in the Torah, especially in the Septuagint version, which is the Greek form of the Old Testament, in Deuteronomy 8:18, where he says, and it is I who give you power, or basically power to get wealth to establish the covenant. That word power in the Greek Septuagint is dunamis. The same word used in Acts 1:8, dunamis, to be witnesses. We also get dunamis to have wealth to establish the covenant. And when we study the blessings and the curses, a lot of the blessings are material. You're going to be blessed in your family, the blessed of the works of your hand. And whatever you do, you're going to be blessed. And actually not just in a spiritual way, in a tangible, physical way. Your health but it's also to establish the covenant and not to forget Yah. And right after this is don't forget Yah, who's blessed you with these things to establish the covenant. So for me, these three things are interlinked. That he wants his people to have wealth. That is dunamis power, to have generational wealth, not just wealth for you and your family, but for your children's children, to have not to be Yah sufficient in every way, and to have the things we need. And so I know there's a big movement, and I'm kind of part of that as well. Of like we're kind of coming out of the Babylonian system of education and just all these different systems of the world. The way we do education in our house is completely different. The way we do fellowship is different. The way we're looking at money now is completely different. And the whole wealth issue, I believe that Yah is going to use believers to be like Abraham. It doesn't say Abraham was rich. It said he was very rich. I'm praying for the days ahead that there would be believers raised up in our movement that would use their wealth, have the dunamis power to get wealth to establish the covenant. And what is the Brit? Well, that's a good question. And I'm pretty sure your book, The Truth, will lay out that Brit. And really, I just want to share this one quick little tidbit. The first word, actually the first letter of the first word of the Bible is Bereshit. And a lot of us know this. This is not uncommon in the Hebrew roots movement. But the first letter is enlarged in the Hebrew, the Bet, which is a house. So the Almighty whole purpose is to have a house, to have a family. From the very beginning, the first letter of the first word is to have a house. Well, how is he going to have this house? Well, if you take the first letter, the Bet, and the second letter, the Resh, is the word bar. And that can be translated bar, son. I know Ben is normally son, but bar is son. So he's going to establish a house through a son. And if you take the Bet, Resh, and the Aleph, you got bara, which means to create. So through the son, he's going to create a house. And this word Bereshit is interesting if you look at it, because the first two letters, the Bet, Resh, and the Yod and the Tav, the last two letters make the word Brit, which means cutting or covenant. In the middle of the word Bereshit is the Aleph and the Shin, which is fire. Now, this is awesome when you think about it, because it's the ash or the fire in the middle of the Brit. This is Genesis chapter 15, where a flaming fire, a torch, goes between the pieces of the Brit. So this son is going to confirm a covenant to establish a house through a Brit, and this is
Brit being sacrificed.
Brit is the covenant. The word covenant,
Brit
a
is
cutting.
Okay.
Now, I'll put it this way: the new covenant is cut with the very blood of Messiah himself to establish that new covenant. And I guess the big difference between the ancient covenant and what Messiah did is really the application. Instead of being written with the finger of Yah on stone, by the Ruach, or the Spirit, writing it on our hearts and our minds to actually walk it out. We have literally Yah's very Spirit living inside of us. One of my favorite verses, especially talking about health, is Romans 8:11, where it says we have the very Spirit that raised Messiah from the dead dwelling in us. And he can quicken this mortal body, meaning our body that, not our body that will receive, our mortal body right now, that he can quicken it through that same spirit. And a lot of people, we haven't really meditated on that. Like, wow, wait a second. The spirit of Messiah is in me, if we're a believer. And I like to say it this way. The tree is in the seed. Once the seed is there, the only thing you need to do is water it. It needs to get sunlight, but the tree is in the seed. And so all the gifts, all the fruits, all the things we need for the set apart life are literally in the spirit that becomes united with united with us. And we're able to be able to walk like Yahushua, we'll be able to walk like Messiah, think like Messiah. We can actually, from the inside out, literally produce the fruit needed. So, and the tree being Messiah himself, literally it's in the seed. And the only thing we have to do is let that be released. Some people use the word activation now, but really just yielding really to the Spirit to let the Ruach lead us. And a lot of times we'll have to renew our mind, our some people call it soul or being, renew our mind, how we're thinking, renew our emotions, how we feel, and our will, what we want. So we want to start wanting the things he wants. We want to start having the feelings that he really feels, having the heart of Yah, having the mind of Yah, and that in that Romans 8:11, that we can actually quicken even our mortal flesh through that same spirit that raised him from the dead. And there's a major breakthrough in health in that regard as well. So it's interesting because my background, even though I'm a naturopath that deals with, I'll call it lifestyle medicine, eat right, get sleep, movement, think right, those type of things. For a lot of people, for health issues, just by getting in the habit of how we ought to operate this body, it make a big difference. Now, one nice thing about my education, since I'm involved in functional medicine, I do have a set of tools to help diagnostically figure out problem solving of specific issues, whether it be autoimmunity or maybe cardiovascular issues or blood sugar and whatnot, and be able to help use that. So it's been really neat to see Yah use both the physical part, what we do in our physical body, and the spiritual, and the two actually go together. So at first I didn't know how this was going to happen. I was like, okay, I'm raised in the science background. I mean, it's extremely fleshly, extremely, mechanical and whatnot. Then the spirit part of it is like these two different worlds. But Yah has showed me that the two go together. Like, no, there's things you can practically do, aka the Torah, but be led by the Ruach. That there is when we're led by his spirit, there is just power in that when it comes to health. And we can as Mark 16 says at the end there, it says believers, not just, the apostles, the prophets, the evangelists, the shepherds and the teachers, but believers, these signs will follow them. They'll cast out demons, they'll speak in new tongues, they'll, if they drink any poisonous, thing, it won't harm them. They'll lay their hands on the sick and they'll recover, whether that's over time or, if it's a working of miracles, it could be instantly, like some of the miracles Messiah would do. I actually am one of those people that literally believe like the scripture in a very literal way. He's revealed to me like, no, my word's not done away with. From the beginning to the end, there's things that are going to come forth in these last days where we're going to see the manifested sons of Elohim walking like Yahushua walked. And both in the, empowered by the Ruach to walk in victory. And it's not even, we can't even boast in it. It's him doing it through us. I was talking to a brother last night about the faith of, there's a difference. Sometimes I'll say, like, people will say, well, what's the difference between what you believe in, the mainstream? I said, well, a lot of people in mainstream believe in Elohim, and that's good. And we should believe in Elohim. But there's something else. When you study the Greek, a lot of times when it talks about belief in Elohim, it's actually, the way it's worded, or it can be translated, is the faith of Elohim. I know in Mark 11, where it says, you can move this mountain, believe, in a lot of English versions, it says believe in Elohim. But in like the Young's Literal, the Aramaic, and a literal Greek, a strict Greek translation it says have the faith of Elohim. Having the faith of Elohim is quite different than having faith just in Elohim. It's literally going, and actually one of the spiritual gifts is the gift of faith. It's like, Father, help me have the faith of Elohim. It's a whole nother level of operating. So when I go out and pray for the sick, I don't want to just pray at my faith level wherever I'm at, because I may see something and go, my faith level is right here. But if I operated in the faith of Elohim, we're going to see something different, completely different. And it's powerful. And Messiah said in John 5, he says, I can only do what I see the Father doing. And so we need to have not only the faith of Elohim, but we also need to have the mind where we're like, Father, what is it are you doing right now? Can you show me what you're doing? And once he gives us that, it's no different in anything. We normally before you can do something, you have to see it. I write out a little plan or set goals. Before I won nationals, I had already seen myself winning nationals. I already saw it before it happened. And a lot of times we need to see it happen. And we're going to go pray for someone that's sick. We almost need to have the mind of Messiah, the faith of Messiah, the mind of Messiah, that how this is going to look, and visualize that as we are walking by the Ruach, empowered by the spirit of the faith of Elohim to walk as Messiah walked. And it helps take the fear out and the responsibility of, like, hey, I'm just gonna, as he shows me, reveals, I'm gonna just do what I see the Father doing. And it's been really exciting. I could talk all day about the spiritual gifts and whatnot and the fruits, but it's been a game changer when doing ministry or praying for the sick, because my confidence is not in myself. It's in Yah. And I feel like that takes the pressure off if we're trying to do our own faith, like, oh, what my faith level at today, to have the faith of Elohim, and to have, and actually in other places says, when he comes, will he find, as some translation says faith. It actually doesn't say that in the Greek. It says, will he find the faith? It's a specific faith, the faith of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, all the way back. So there is a faith that's consistent throughout the scripture. And so defining what that faith is very important. So what is the faith? So yeah. But anyways, yeah, that's a tidbit there.
Wow. Wow. Well, you're blowing my mind here, but I'm tracking. It makes sense. The difference between just having faith in him, because I always kind of, or a couple times I thought about that verse, the common translation of that verse, and how it says you just have to faith in God. But it says even the demons believe and tremble. So what's the difference between having faith, believing that he is, and what the demons have faith? They know that he is. I mean, but do they have the faith of him? It sounds like that is a possible better translation. Or?
Yeah, and actually, and the faith, again, back to Abraham. Well, Abraham heard and did, like James 2 talks about. So his faith actually had works. The two went together. Faith and works go together. And the demons believe too, but they don't obey. So it is definitely a faith that produces fruit. The whole purpose of the seed going in is to produce fruit. And we just need to yield. Let that light shine. Let the water and the tree is definitely in the seed. You just don't see it. We don't see it yet. But we need to let it, and that's the big thing, because I'm always so excited, ready to go. And Yah said he's revealed things over time. And maybe we'll talk more about the supernatural here in a second, what he's revealed of recent, which keeps blowing my mind. And it makes me think like, I thought I knew something. Then he just totally takes it to a whole nother level. I'm like, okay, I give up.
Well, there's multiple ways to go here. I mean, we can continue with your story about nutrition and how you got into that practice, or we can jump straight to the supernatural, or we can just go to advice for people. How do they live? How do they improve their health? Maybe we should keep it on health rather than wealth and the other, but I feel like we're going to need to do more. I don't know. I feel like we're going to need to do more interviews.
Well, the whole wealth thing is interesting because a lot of people like, prosperity gospel. There is a true wealth or prosperity gospel. It may be different than what people think. But I don't think it's Yah's intent that we be struggling and, just under a curse. I'll just say it that way. I feel like there's definitely blessing. You just can't read Deuteronomy 28 and come away with like, wow, those are physical blessings. They're physical. I don't know. There's no other way to put it. So, the health part, this is a whole world in of itself. As I was coming here today, I had thought about one of the things, I know next month I'll be starting a month-by-month online kind of a little course thingy on different aspects of health. I think in October it'll be Hashimoto's, which is the number one autoimmune disease in the world, the number one endocrine disease in the world, and it has to do with thyroid disease, autoimmunity to the thyroid for underactive thyroid, and what you can do about that. Then in November, I believe I'm doing hormone health and women, men, children, the whole gamut there. That's a big issue. I want to come back here in a second and talk about infertility. Talk about that in that talk. And then in, I think, December, I want to do something on depression, anxiety type disorders, because during a lot of the darker months or when the sun's not out, a lot of people struggle with depression and doubt and anxiety disorders. I want to talk about that month. And then I think kicking off the January. So the Hebrew New Year is quite different. But, a lot of people make these New Year resolutions and all that stuff. Just to meet people where they're at, for me, it's kind of interesting to a lot of people will want to jump into some sort of program for their health or their diet and whatever. So I think I have a burn fat fast challenge and whatnot. And in a lot of these courses, we'll talk on the physical side, obviously, but maybe try to include a lot of some spiritual tidbits that they may not be aware of in all these. I did want to make one mention about infertility, because a lot of people, because the clients that I work with have all sorts of different issues going on. And a lot of people may not realize this, but a lot of times for infertility, the guy, it's not just, a lot of people think that maybe it's a female issue or whatnot. And the research shows that a lot of times we're finding out that sometimes it can be actually the guy based off, I'm going to be careful my language here for the audience. Maybe they're not able to produce enough seed, or that seed may not be moving, or the morphology of that seed may not be where it needs to be, those three areas. So there's a lot of things they can do to actually correct that. And actually one thing in the research that addresses sperm count, motility, and morphology is actually something called CoQ10. And it addresses all three of those. So there's a really easy hack. Now, you may have to take a little bit of that, but I've worked with people with infertility that have not been able to conceive for years. We found out through testing it was actually the male, not the female. And we put them on a regimen for diet and whatnot. But that in the research is really, really effective for helping, specifically for guys for that. Now, for females, I mean, it could be causes for infertility. It could be PCOS, fibroids, endometriosis, all those type of stuff.
Okay, what does your family and your kids do during cold and flu season to stay healthy?
we go south. No, yeah, actually, there can be if you're not exposed. The darker you are in skin color, the more vitamin D you actually need to keep your vitamin D levels up. So obviously, vitamin D is a major. It's actually the conductor of the whole entire immune system. Really, it coordinates a lot of the operation of the immune system. So something as simple as keeping your vitamin D levels up, whether it's getting some sunshine or taking a vitamin D supplement. I know good forms of fish and whatnot have vitamin D. People used to take. My dad used to give me cod liver oil when I was a child. I didn't like taking that at all, but there's different ways you can get vitamin D in your system. I will say this caveat though: if someone has autoimmunity, a lot of times, like on blood work, we like to see it above a 30 on blood work, and so, but if someone has autoimmunity, that lab range actually almost doubles. So, because people with autoimmunity have an issue with actually metabolizing vitamin D, so they may go out in the sun, they may even take a supplement, and they may still test, and they're not able to absorb it properly. So there's some little things with that people may need to realize, but that'd be a big simple thing to do. Just trying to get sunlight. There's a lot with light therapy that even with our moods as well. It helps with vitamin D, helps with our hormones, our moods, sleep and whatnot. So it's a very simple, easy way. And so many people are deficient in vitamin D. It's just crazy. When we test, I can't believe on lab work how many people are in single digits. It's like, wow, this is so from my point of view, that's almost an easy fix a lot of times. So we'll normally, from about November to February in northern Indiana, we'll take a supplement, or we may do a trip and get a lot of sunlight. I know we're going to be traveling here soon, and hopefully spend a little bit of time in some isolated beaches and just try to take up some rays and get some exposure, and that normally helps with my moods and what I can tell a big difference being out in the sun versus being trapped. If it's cloudy outside and whatnot. A lot of people that do have, again, depression or different anxiety disorders, as soon as they get sunlight, their moods just absolutely change. So, vitamin D is a basic one, but a really foundational, especially for autoimmunity.
Okay, so vitamin D is the number one thing for that time of year. That makes sense. What are your thoughts on multivitamins? Are they good as a sort of nutritional insurance, or can we just eat well and get what we need?
Yeah, the whole thing with multivitamins, I mean, for some people that can be fine. The only problem is that all of us really are quite different in how our body, where we're at in time, because when you're little, it's going to be different when you're a teenager versus when you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s. I mean, things change as we go along. So what may work when you're in your 20s may not work when you're in your 30s, same thing's 40s. So the only problem with multivitamins, they don't address specifics. So they're just, it's really hard to tell if they help or don't help or whatnot. I will say some of the multivitamins have things in them that could be a problem. And for one, I will mention this iodine. I know for Hashimoto's, if people have Hashimoto's, one of the major triggers for Hashimoto's is iodine, which is completely counterintuitive because iodine is how you make the thyroid hormone. T1, 2, 3, and 4 is made from iodine. But the research shows if you take iodine, it actually can trigger Hashimoto's, which will lead to hair loss, weight gain, extreme fatigue, and all those symptoms. A lot of people don't know that. And so guess what? One of the number one supplements is for iodine, or for thyroid deficiency. Iodine supplements. They'll actually advertise iodine, and a lot of people don't know this, so they take it, not realizing that's one of the triggers that causes autoimmunity, especially if you have Hashimoto's. So yeah, that's a big, that's a big piece right there.
Okay, I'm interested in this. What about the source of iodine? Does that matter? Like, let's say I'm taking mineral iodine, or I'm taking it from kelp. Like, would one of them trigger and maybe not the other, or have you gotten to look at that?
For example, I use myself as a personal example here. Like, so I tested as someone with low thyroid function when I did my own testing, and since I had low testing without antibodies, TPO antibodies against the thyroid, I could actually take, like, if you don't have autoimmune thyroid, you could take, like what you were saying, like kelp or different things that have, trace minerals and whatnot, and you're gonna be fine. I could even take a little bit of iodine, and I'm normally fine. Another thing we'll find out, years ago, there used to be an iodine deficiency. There is not anymore. The research shows there is a major excess in iodine. I'll be talking about this in detail in the Hashimoto's course because it's a major, major issue, because one of the top supplements on the market for people that have thyroid issues is iodine supplements. And a lot of times the multivitamins have iodine in them, which is a trigger for autoimmunity. Since Hashimoto's is the number one autoimmune disease in the world and the number one endocrine disease in the world, it's important to understand this. So and I actually personally sell iodine. So this is where knowing who you're working with and what they have, you can be very custom. There's times where iodine can be good if someone had a major, for example, estrogen imbalance. I mean, it could help counter some of these things and whatnot. So there's a time and place for a lot of different things, and knowing how to use nutrition as precision. So that's really the big issue with multivitamins. You're really not, it's just a gunshot approach. But my only caveat would be some of them have things in them that I would not recommend, especially to a pregnant lady, because if they do have autoimmunity, that even becomes more of an issue, especially when the tying in autoimmunity with miscarriages. So anything that would raise TPO antibodies and autoimmunity would be even another trigger.
What's TPO antibodies for us rubes?
Yeah, so TPO antibodies is antibody against basically the thyroid. There's TG antibodies and there's TSH antibodies as well. And there's another autoimmune disease called Graves' disease, which is hyperthyroidism. So Hashimoto's is like hypothyroidism, like underactive thyroid, and Graves' is hyperthyroidism. So Graves, normally you'll see people's eyes almost like they're bulging a little bit. And actually it's kind of weird because the beginning stages of Hashimoto's is very similar to Graves'. And a lot of people that I've worked with have been misdiagnosed with Graves', and they actually had Hashimoto's. So that's a whole nother story. So doing appropriate testing is actually really a key. So one of the things when I work with people is, especially if they have hot thyroid issues, to make sure we test TPO antibodies to see if is it just a normal underactive thyroid or is it autoimmune thyroid? Since most of the underactive thyroid is autoimmune underactive thyroid, I'm very curious to see if that's going on, because that will change what we do diet-wise majorly and how we approach it. It's not mainly a thyroid issue, it's an immune system issue. And so there's something called the web of the thyroid and how all the other organs tie into the thyroid. And I'll be getting into this in detail in October, but yeah.
Okay, all right. Since we brought up multivitamins, and I'm glad we did, because I never would have thought about iodine in there triggering things. Do you have a problem with synthetic vitamins? Do you think whole food vitamins are better? Is there any difference? Is there any research here, or from your experience, maybe all of this?
Right. And actually, it's interesting because some of the like when I work with a lot of people with autoimmunity, and on the big scope of things, there will be mineral deficiencies and whatnot, and I know gut health's a big thing. The gut's the crave. You talked about fads earlier. Well, this may be one. Everyone thinks everything's in the gut. Everything starts in the gut and whatnot. And there is there can be some truth to that, but it's a very blanket statement. And since I work with people that have so many different issues, sometimes it's not the gut that's the main thing. Sometimes it's the brain. And actually, by the way, most of the gut function is actually controlled by the brain anyways. So, for example, someone can't break down their protein. Well, that is, there may be having a brain issue, not being able to release HCl or whatnot. So there's a lot of triggers from the brain that control gut function. So to use this blanket statement, everything begins in the gut, is not true, for one. And number two, a lot of people take a lot of probiotics and whatnot, and nothing against probiotics, but in the big scope of things for serious conditions like autoimmunity, the research does not show their the cost value ratio, maybe it's not the best thing to invest in. So there's different strategies that are way more powerful that you're not throwing your money down the toilet literally with probiotics that may not work or whatnot. So there are some that do work. You mentioned one that helped you out that for certain things. But in the big scope of things, a lot of these mineral things they're not root causes. The only reason why you have a mineral deficiency because you're not breaking down your food properly to actually extract the minerals. So how about fix your digestion, break down your food so you can get your minerals? So that's kind of, from my approach, is actually more root cause. So yes, whole vitamins would be more in line with natural stuff. And this is actually a good question because this may give a difference of what I do versus a typical naturopath or someone in green medicine. And so in green medicine, or I should put it in allopathic, for example, we'll just use blood sugar, for example. If someone's blood sugar goes over 126, they're going to go, oh, this person, they qualify for metformin, which is a medication to lower your blood sugar down for, diabetes and whatnot. So in green medicine, they take the same approach. Oh, your blood sugar is high. So instead of giving you an allopathic drug, let me give you a green medicine that will lower that. So they may use berberine or something like that, or goat's rue, which, by the way, metformin was made from looking at goat's rue, a plant, whatnot. So they may substitute, but the thinking's the same. What I do in functional medicine is completely different. We look for root causes. Maybe your liver, maybe your, for example, this whole thing with your blood sugar is caused by something else. Has nothing to do with, I'm not saying, a lot of times, yeah, taking those things could help, but the way we do our investigation is completely different. We're not this for that. Oh, you have this, take that. Because everyone goes, well, okay, here's what you take if you have, you're on medication. Well, here's green medicine. You just replace the drug and now you take all these things. It's not looking at the mechanism, what's going on. So in functional medicine, we're looking for the mechanism of why, the disconnect of why something is. And so that approach is completely different. We're looking what's the hiccup in the steps to produce the end result. So it's completely a game changer. And so especially in the type of functional medicine I'm in is very mechanical in that regard. Like we can actually break down step by step, like in the neurology and the physiology, like is this happening, and knowing the neurology and the physiology of why that step is missing in digestion or with hormones or with liver function or whatever is going on. So it's a lot more thorough than just this for that type thing. It's not really addressing the issue per se. It has probably nothing. That's probably a symptom. There's something else going on. So yeah, there's deeper levels to the nutrition. So I don't want to, when I say a naturopath, a lot of people go, oh, you use green medicine, this for that. It's like, well, yeah, but no.
Well, you were telling me something about you're the only something or other, and I wanted you to save it for film. Because you're talking about your approach and how it's different than the majority of naturopaths. Can you talk about that, like about what you were about to tell me?
Yeah, so actually, especially in the state of Indiana, so there's different, it gets pretty wide with naturopathy. I mean, you get every flavor. Not that I'm, discounting other approaches, but one of the groups I'm a part of from the Krasian Institute is one of the most distinguished for functional medicine. Well, as far as I know, in the state of Indiana, I'm the only certified functional medicine clinician, and which is is very unique. Even for what I'm doing is kind of a prestigious thing because the specialty is actually in the diagnostics. Like, the big questions people ask is, where do I start? Like, what do I even do? Like, where do I go? Like, if I was to test for something, what would I test? What does it mean? And even if I knew what it would mean, what do you do about it? So what to test, what it means, what to do about it. So I'll help people navigate through that, like take on a case, use questionnaires, and use subjective, which is questionnaires. Like, what do they get? And I have very good questionnaires that literally, like, are the kind of give me a clue in the mechanisms. Like, certain symptoms would cause, for example, someone's burping, belching, and bloated. I can almost guess that certain lab markers are going to be off, and they're not able to produce their HCl. Because burping, belching, bloated means you're probably not producing enough hydrochloric acid. Well, if you're not producing it, if you can't break down your protein, well, you're going to have a hormone imbalance. You're going to have hair loss. You're going to have mineral deficiency. You're going to have a whole bunch of issues. By the way, what I'm talking about is that, like, one of the number one things for digestive health, people actually do not produce enough stomach acid to break down their food. And it's actually interesting because of recent, a lot of people thought that they'll take antacids and all these different things, but when people started using Heidelberg capsule tests, they would swallow a capsule. What they were finding with a lot of these people that had heartburn, it wasn't that they had high or low on the pH scale, low acid, but they were alkaline. They were high on the pH scale. They weren't producing enough HCl to get their pH down, which was counterintuitive, because you would think if you're having burning symptoms that you have, too much acid. Well, what they found out, the valves are pH sensitive, and when the body by default will try to keep the contents of the stomach in there as long as possible, because they don't want undigested. The stomach will try to keep that stuff in the stomach as long as possible, because if it releases in the small intestine and hasn't been broken down, now you open yourself up to every single infection you can possibly think of. I mean, you have fungus, parasites, bacteria in between the undigested protein. So that's a major issue. By the way, the whole immune system works for allergies on abnormal proteins. So just by being able to break down your protein or take enzymes that help break down your protein, your sensitivities are going to greatly diminish, because the whole entire, how the immune system tags protein-based things. So that's a really key piece for if someone's dealing with allergies or sensitivities and whatnot.
On that note, let's say you found some person like that. I know it's a random example, but that's very interesting. What would you do? Let's say you identified that. You wouldn't slide in the green medication, or would you? Or in that case,
there's a place and time for that. I mean, yeah, that'd be icing on the cake, but if you're trying to be efficient, and depending on how much people are willing to invest too. So instead of using the green medicine, sometimes I like to use lifestyle medicine initially, which is, let's see if we can change your diet and how much improvement we can get by changing your diet. If someone's like, hey, I'll do whatever you say here, maybe we can use diet. And for them, it's powerful, because they can realize how powerful diet is without any supplementation. They go, wow, I didn't realize, for me, I was a prime example. I didn't realize my diet was affecting my performance when I was an athlete. So when I actually changed my diet, I was like, wow, my energy outputs are better. I was actually performing better. I was like, wow, this is interesting.
You just removed the big gulp.
Yeah, I just removed the big gulp. Well, a whole bunch of big gulps. I was drinking quite a bit of Pepsi and all that stuff, which obviously I don't recommend.
Wait, why? Before we leave, I'm sorry, I hate to keep getting caught, but why not? Why can't someone just drink all the soda they want?
Well, for example, I mentioned earlier that I was working out 6 times a day. And I'm O blood, fast oxidizer, so I have high metabolism. And so when I was an athlete, if I was drinking pop all the time, at least my metabolism was so high, I didn't really have as much of a blood sugar crash. But the problem was when I became more sedentary, and for me, not those six workouts a day, just reading a lot more and whatnot, and my diet stayed the same, but still drinking the big gulps and stuff like that, but not moving as much. I felt the effect big time, and blood sugar was going through the roof. So I was like hyperglycemia, hypoglycemia, like kind of feel like you have sugar, you feel, I feel great. And a couple hours later, you're like taking a nap and drooling almost. I mean, you're like hypoglycemic. So actually through fasting, normally they tell you don't fast if you're hypoglycemic, but through fasting, I was actually able to heal hypoglycemic type symptoms of the shakiness. You normally know people are hypoglycemic because if they don't get food right away when they need it, they get angry and they get shaky really fast. And that was definitely me. So, but you throw me a steak, I'm good to go. My wife, when we were first married, she thought I was almost bipolar because like if my blood sugar got off or I needed food right away, as soon as I would get food, I was almost like a different person. And she was like, what is going on here? This is crazy. I was like two different people almost. But when you start using diet and fasting, it can really gain self-control. And that's one reason why I really like fasting, because you can make it a lifestyle. And there's all sorts of types of fasting. Almost anybody can fast, even with people with extreme health conditions. Can do different types of fast. Now, there's so many different types. You can find a right type of fasting for you. And maybe just a window of fasting for a period of time and whatnot. So, but there are certain health things where people probably want to not. Yeah, if you're listening to this, don't start with a 40 nights of fasting, please. Especially build yourself up. If you've never fasted before, maybe you could start just doing intermittent fasting where you maybe miss a meal or 2 meals and then have eat 1 meal a day or something like that. My family and I just got off a 24-hour dry fast just recently, and I don't recommend dry fasting if you've never done that before too, because that's no food or water. But that was just for a very specific reason. There's all sorts of types of fasting. There's gonna be fasting like the Daniel diet and whatnot, where maybe you fast certain types of food, where you only have maybe veggies, or there's so many different diets out there. I have hundreds of diets at my tweaking diets for people where they're at. I'm not stuck to one diet meets all. There's very specific things you can use at different times. You can use a more vegetarian diet at times. You could use a more ketogenic type diet at times, and you could use them therapeutically for certain issues as well. There's something called the DASH diet if someone has blood pressure issues and whatnot. So there's all sorts of different types of diets for certain situations. So knowing when to use what when, that's kind of where it's not one thing for everybody. It's not a cookie cutter, I guess, in that regard.
I guess it goes back to your onboarding process of people. What is that onboarding process like? Like, let's say someone reaches out to you, make an appointment. What do you look at first? You mentioned how you have them fill out the questionnaires.
Yeah, basically it's just like what people call a case study, where you just kind of like, okay, just getting subjective information. Like, okay, what's your history? What's your family history? And depending on who I'm working with and what their main goals are, I have specific questionnaires for those issues. Like, say if I'm working with a couple for infertility, I have special questionnaires that get very detailed on that topic. I have other ones that deal with brain health and all sorts of things like Alzheimer's and just different things that get very specific on regions of the brain. Like if people are having floaters in their visual field and all these different, what people call weird symptoms, it can actually tell you exactly where it's located from, where it's coming from. What if they
do have some floaters in their visual? Because I have noticed. I noticed this on myself.
And it could definitely make us want to look more at the optic area, and just see what the optic nerve is doing. And actually, it could zone us in on looking at maybe doing a neurological exam, just kind of see what is going on, and this is interesting because blood sugar and eye function are interlinked actually, especially people that have lazy eyes and they have an eye that just floats out to the side. It's interesting because your nerve that innervates the eyes is very sensitive blood sugar. So when people can't stabilize their blood sugar, you notice their lazy eye just floats out and they can't. So this is really important for children who can't read, because in order to read, you have to be able to do convergence, be able to take both your eyes and look in. So if a child's if they're on the, I've I've gone to a lot of families where the children are on like the Skittle diet, like they wonder why. I go in their house and they wonder why they're having learning disabilities and they're eating ramen noodles and Skittles, and I'm like, okay, I think I know what's going on. They have blood sugar issues and they have ADHD and they can't read. They have almost like they can't focus because they can't converge their eyes. The blood sugar literally is they have a lazy eye. And as soon as you start addressing some of these mechanisms, you can actually improve the function of the nerves that do that specific function. So it can get so the assessment it helps take the guesswork. So the questionnaires basically get prelim information, then through the assessment, you can actually then confirm that. And then another step further than the physical evaluation would be lab testing, where you can go, okay, I want to test, a common thing that I run is blood work, look at what we call a blood workout, see if the liver's working right. I talked about thyroid before, where's the thyroid levels. And I will say this is something interesting. In functional medicine, we have an optimal range, and then there's called the pathological range. So when most people get their labs back, that's the pathological range. It's not optimal health range. So a lot of times people think they're okay, and they're not necessarily okay. They just don't have a disease yet. There's an optimal range for a lot of these things. And that's a really big takeaway as well, that so that's one of the first things people find out, because when I run those labs through what I call a true report or optimal range, a lot of people find out the markers they thought they were okay, that they're already showing signs that there's a problem in XYZ or whatever is going on. So so I use questionnaires, physical evaluation, and lab testing if need be. If we need to look at hormones, for example, if someone has fertility issues or cycle issues where their cycle's all off or whatnot, we can get really specific on, are they making enough progesterone at the right time, or estrogen, or are they working together at this right time? Is their liver and gallbladder able to clear the estrogen? How's their methylation, which is kind of detoxing and whatnot. So, a lot of that is addressed. So it's more of a comprehensive approach in that regard. So when I say naturopath, I don't want to, even though I am a naturopath, I think there's a stereotype, you're going to just recommend an herb for this or that. And it's true, I do use herbs a lot. And I think they're really powerful. They're nutrient packed. They're powerful. And it's really, and my wife is actually a master herbalist. So we may have to do some things together, maybe some upcoming videos that have her do plant identification. I may know what to take, but she knows how to identify a lot of these things and how to prep them and things like that. If you were literally, where we live out kind of in the country, we're in a plain community, so a farming community. So we're in a community where, they're very like-minded, at least in the farming aspect of things, of trying to not use different chemicals and whatnot, non-GMO type stuff and whatnot. So we are in a very interesting bubble in that regard. So, I'm not against herbs. But just trying to use the type of medicine, whether it be, and I'll mention one that a lot of people underestimate: movement. The best thing you could do for your brain is move. Hands down. It doesn't matter if someone has Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, depression, fatigue, whatever, some form of movement. And movement's a little bit different than just, if I say exercise, people think they need to go get a club membership. We just need to move. We need to just do different movement and increase our movement vocabulary. And it may be even picking up a instrument and learning how to play something just to get our brain firing. It's amazing. When we move, it just lights up our brain. It gets circulation to our body. It just does so many positive things. So one of the big four with diet, making sure people are getting good quality sleep, movement, and just mindset, one of those big four is just movement. And a lot of people in our society move too little, or if you have athletes that are addicted to, ultra marathoner or cyclists that are overtraining, that could be a problem too. I've had both extremes. Just trying to find just trying to have a balance and try to use natural things. I know we're going on a trip here soon, my family. We'll try to, walk in nature. I don't know how I have a German Shepherd dog right now, but somehow I bartered and got a dog. And my dad used to raise German Shepherds when I was younger, but so I walked my German Shepherd through the woods. Actually, get some prayer time as well in that, just in nature and whatnot. But just going for walks and stuff like that can be really helpful for people that want to do something real basic, especially during the warmer weather. You may have to get kind of creative in the wintertime. But movement is such a simple thing that's overlooked, especially for brain health. And I'm going to be talking about different ways different categories of movement and how to, again, that's a whole nother area. There's all sorts of different types of movement, not to overtrain, undertrain, but what movement may be best for, where someone's at and whatever their goal is at. Of course, I worked with athletes that, I used to coach with Wawasee High School for wrestling, helped out at one point, and they ended up winning a state title, and it had nothing to do with me. I was a volunteer coach, but just used to working with collegiate athletes and high school athletes and just different age athletes. And that's a whole different level of movement, specialty versus, people that have neuropathy, they barely feel their feet or whatever. You're going to be at a completely different level. Maybe you're going into a warm pool and just walking around in there and just kind of, maybe you're in bed and can't barely move, but you're just moving your arms and legs on your back. I mean, just anything just to move a little bit. Whatever you can move. And you know what? Actually, it's interesting when we, again, tying this back to Torah. Shema, hear and do. We are designed to do. We are designed to move. There's not just to take information in, but to do. And it's so interesting how that ties into our physiology. We are created to move. And we're actually created to be like the Creator. The first way the Creator is described is being the Creator. In the beginning, Elohim created. And I think a lot of times in education, a lot of things, we have lost our creativity. Like you're creating all these wonderful podcasts, books, tracks, all these different things. A lot of times, I know for my children, for our education, I'm trying not to quench any creativity, whether it be the arts. We're really big on the arts, whether it be physical art, whether it be music, dance, whatever. I have a daughter who loves to write. And not too many people in our family are writers, so I'm encouraging her. I mean, she handwrites tracks. Speaking of tracks, she handwrites personal tracks. I mean, she can literally handwrite. And if she writes someone, I mean, she's only 13, she'll write you like a 30, 40-page letter. I mean, I don't ever write my friends 30, 40-page letters by hand. I can't remember a time doing that. So she is really gifted. So for as a father, just like going, okay, not being biased because maybe I'm not good at it, or I don't have something I don't want to have my bias influence maybe the gifting that Yah has for my children, I guess is the way to put it. And so we have kept that open and just seeing, Yah, where do you want them to be? Who are they and what direction? So we're very watching very closely of what their learning style is, and feeding into where, and not saying that's the only thing they're going to do, but just kind of having that flow, that in learning style, and hopefully over time, like I said, when I was younger, I was only a kinesthetic learner. Like if I heard something auditory, it might as well, I would just daydream. I mean, I'd be like, I didn't hear a thing. Whatever just happened. So that was horrible for school, because I'd be sitting there just like, it might as well have been like Charlie Brown, because I was like sitting there, I could not focus. But you put me on the mat or athletics, I could move. That was my world right there, movement, learning through the movement. But now as I've gotten older, yeah, whether I'm traveling or what, I can listen to things. We shouldn't limit if maybe we have a favorite way of learning, but as we get older, we should challenge that. I didn't really have an interest in music when I was younger, but trying to pick up a guitar and try to, have the dexterity to move my hands around and do that. And again with movement, trying to move, trying to do different things, and realizing if that spirit of Yah is in me, there's more potential than I realize if I just yield.
I think talking about movement is something that is left out of most medical discussions or health discussion. Well, not all health. So, all right, I have a couple more for you just on the health stuff from Katie. That's why I'm referencing my list. All right, what sort of conditions would people be surprised can be treated naturally?
A lot of the, actually, in this, sleep. A lot of the hormone issues may be a problem with light and sleep rhythm, because light triggers the hormone cortisol and darkness controls the hormone melatonin. So it's when we sleep that we do a lot of our repair. And then when we wake up, we're up and at it again. So sometimes people have a circadian rhythm that's all off. They may be, and there's times where we'll be up in the night if Yah is waking us up at that time. But there's some people that have an inverse relationship where they can't get up during the morning at all. They can't get up in the day at all. Their cortisol is not lifting up, but they're up all night long. They have a flip pattern. So, again, I've had clients where literally they said, hey, my daughter's having learning disabilities. One of the first questions, one of the categories we look at is like sleep. And the ideal sleep time is, and this can vary just a little bit, but it's typically 10 to 6, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. The first 4 hours of that is more of our physical repair. Then the last 4 is the psychogenic repair. And it can be broken down in many more layers. But so if you're not getting that first 4 hours, you're not getting physical repair. So it's huge if you're trying to recover from an injury or whatever. If you're going to bed at, you say, midnight or 2 o'clock, you've totally missed your healing phase for your physical body. And if you get even later than that, then your brain, you may have slept, but your brain probably not fully recovered. So it's really important to make sure you're getting optimal sleep at the right time. It's not just getting 8 hours, it's at the right time. There's people that work thirds and will try to get 8 hours. It's not the same. So it's very specific. We are designed kind of to follow the sun in more ways than one. We work during the day, and as the sun sets, our body just chemically unwinds, and we're kind of, we're designed to rest during that time. But yeah, that can be just by addressing when we wake up, habits, when we wake up and trying to get to bed in a rhythm. It's just something that simple. And for someone that was, obviously in college and up super late, was trying to improve my, like, for example, hormone imbalance, in performance for athletics, it makes a huge difference to make sure you're getting optimal sleep. And actually, as an athlete, we learn to do a lot of napping as well. There are little naps, like 20-minute naps, can be beneficial for someone that's an athlete or someone dealing with some serious. There's no difference. Like, we're sick, we'll take a nap normally throughout the day. But for people that have chronic issues, little naps are very beneficial for helping build up the body. And for a lot of people spiritually, they can be good for dreams. Sometimes you have some of the best dreams in a short little nap time. So it's kind of a 2-for-1.
My buddy Tom had trouble chronically with getting to sleep. That was his problem. Do you have any recommendations, not just for specifically Tom, but let's say someone's struggling with sleep. Maybe they either can't fall asleep or they can't stay asleep or whatever. What's some of the first things you do? You mentioned routines in the morning.
Yeah.
How do you get into that right rhythm? Does it have to do with the moon? Does it have to do with the sun, the waves? Like, how much are we affected by this stuff?
Yeah, we want to definitely, if there's interference, some people are very sensitive to electronics, EMF type stuff, there's a lot of things that just in the world we live is just kind of different. So we'll try to use temperature regulation. Some people, if they're too hot or too cold, they'll have issues sleeping. So and actually sunlight too. That's why it's so hard to sleep if someone works thirds, because you really have to be able to get that room really, really dark. Because there's any sunlight coming through and it hits the body, you're producing cortisol, which chemically is waking you up. So, trying to get the room dark, cool, try not to have too much electronics next to you per se, if it's a major issue. And the routine's the biggest thing. Just trying to do, the first couple, nights it may be an issue, but trying to wind down before. If you want to be to bed by 10, you're probably gonna have to start earlier. I know with me, with little ones, and in the summertime, it actually is a little bit different. It's about 30 minutes late, because since, the sun's out a little bit later during the summer time, it's normally about 10:30 to 6:30 a.m. In the morning. So there is a shift. I should probably mention that for ideal time. So that does help, because I'm a night owl. So I normally like to stay up later, but if I find myself being called out too late, it definitely will affect your health. And it's a massive, just getting into bed before 10, how it's almost a revival in that and of itself. But just getting in the habit. I know certain people have certain jobs, if they work thirds and whatever, and some people had such serious health issues. My recommendation was literally them to get a different job, because the job was, for how serious their health was, it was like worth really looking for it, because it was that bad against their health. So that's kind of a huge.
So what's your schedule sleep-wise personally? You wake up at 5. Do you sleep 8 full hours, or do you try to get to bed at 10 like you say?
I try to get to bed at 10 as best as I can. With my current, during the Moedim cycle and stuff like that, it may change. For me personally, in the season I am in life right now, Yah has me getting up at just interesting times. Last night was weird. It was 2:00. Something had came up. So it's just interesting. So it really just varies in that regard. But I try. I know back when I was an athlete, I would try to get to bed at 10:00, and it made a big difference energy-wise. Now, granted, being an athlete, it was so weird, because wrestling, the finals would be like late at night. I think I wrestled my national final. It may have been close to 10:30, 11 o'clock, or maybe even later in some of these tournaments for college. So for a lot of times we would train, even practice late at night, because our performance was required. When people were going to bed, we were supposed to be performing at our best. So we'd actually practice that way. In different times a day. Basically in wrestling, we just you need to be on call 24/7. If you need to perform, if you're sick, you need to perform. Anything happens, you need to perform at any time. And I almost take that mentality spiritually, like, if Yah calls, I'm answering now. And so, with that being said, I'm on call. So it's my schedule's a little bit different, but I try to get to bed by 10. And unfortunately, right now in the season, I'm up normally at 5 or earlier right now. Once in a while on Shabbat, I will purposely go in. I'm gonna try to sleep in and not just, and that's enjoyable. But I also have 8 children at home, so they normally will come in and wake me up.
And so, okay, how about kids? When do you try to get your kids to bed?
We try to have them follow that same cycle. They do sleep in normally, obviously later than, they don't normally get up at 5 unless something's an issue. But
so you all go to bed at the same time? We
try to go, when we, sometimes we'll try to have them go a little bit earlier, but they tend to, in the summer months, stay up close to 10. And I know a lot of people sleep a lot earlier, and that's fine. It seems like it helps go with the rhythm of where we're at too as well. So it just works for us right now. Some of our children, they are down way before 10. I mean, they're ready to go way before that time. It seems like 10 comes quick, at least this time of year, even though it's getting earlier and earlier sunset time. Yeah, it fluctuates. But in the wintertime, pre-Shabbat, I mean, it seems like it's like 5 o'clock and it seems like it's getting dark outside, like really. So then, but it's amazing. Then 10 o'clock, then it seems like it's super late. Like I'm ready to go to bed and it's only like 7 o'clock. So, so we really do follow. I mean, it's almost like our body winds down when that sun. In those cases, sometimes we will in the wintertime, we'll be in bed definitely by 10. Yeah, that's a lot easier during that time of year. In the summer, obviously, it's harder if the sun just went down and it's almost, still light out close to 10 o'clock.
Katie wants to know, what are your recommendations for moms who want to stay healthy but are short on time? What should they prioritize?
My wife, one of the things she does is try to have a time of prayer. Now, to have private time as a mother is very, very hard because the children will try to find her anywhere. If any door is closed, they will hunt her down and find her. So she'll try to get some time. And even though we have completely different kind of schedules somewhat, like I'm doing my thing and she's doing, we will come together obviously during devotion and whatnot. But she will try to. The reason why I'm mentioning prayer, it starts your day off right. Like for everything else, like if I'm working with a client or my wife's addressing children, it puts you in the right mental attitude, a right emotional state, and everything else. Just connecting with the Almighty. To be operating, flowing in the ruach, the spirit of love and patience and kindness and joy and in shalom, to before the day starts, like you're already set for the day. I mean, it's a lot harder to be moved off base. And actually, quite honestly, this morning, I knew even today something was going on today because this doesn't happen all the time, but all my children were up last night. My wife wakes me up at 2 o'clock. And so we start praying because it was just an interesting event. We thought it was a spiritual attack. And even this morning, my wife thought maybe it had something to do about our meeting today. That obviously these videos that you've been working so hard to get out, for, people to hear this truth movement. I don't think the kingdom of darkness wants these videos to go out or these things to be revealed to people. So, I'm so used to it though. I'm not shocked by it, but there really is I don't think people realize there is really a spiritual force against the kingdom of light. And so when I go out for ministry on the streets or wherever I go, it is incredible how many things will come again. And it's almost supernatural, like the type of attacks, and it's very interesting. So being aware of that and not being moved by that and just kind of praying through that and addressing anything that needs to happen, it just makes you realize that, yeah, this is important. It's actually important. Whatever's going on is important. So it made me kind of realize, okay, there's something going on. So that's, I guess back to my wife and just routine for her. That's a huge piece because if she does not get that time and the children get up before she does and get to her, 8 children, the different things they need. Luckily, our older children, my daughter's 13, and they're helping out a lot. So there's a lot of delegation and helping. So it's actually, and I want to say this, for those who have maybe 2 children or 3 children, I know it feels overwhelming, but sometimes actually having more children is easier than having few. When we had 2 children, it was kind of easy because there was one for her, one for me. We could just switch off and it was great. Then we were outnumbered at 3. We're like, oh wow, we're kind of outnumbered here. And then it started getting interesting after that. But once they reach a certain age, when the olders could help out, it was like actually easier. And people ask me now, like, how can you? I'm like, it's actually, the provision is easier, and everything's actually easier now. It's actually counterintuitive. I would have thought it'd been harder. It's actually easier now than it is then. So sometimes Yah's ways are completely, it blows me away with that regard. But that would be my number one. I think if my wife was here, that's probably what she would say is so important to get that time, because that can throw off your whole day if you don't have that time with Yah. But on a health note, also with a mother, and I will say this, sleep is really, really important. And it's really hard because, again, you're a mom. You're on call 24/7. Trying to get to bed on time is a lot of females I work with, that is a major issue. Trying to get deep, deep sleep. It can be really healing to their hormones. A lot of the females, by the way, most of the people that have Hashimoto's, the number one endocrine disease and autoimmune disease in the world, are actually female. So with that being said, in a lot of the stress of society and pressures of culture, a lot of women take a lot of that on, and anxiety and whatnot. And to combat that, sleep is a really, really important thing. So making sure they get their sleep is a really foundational nugget. So for me, for lifestyle medicine, I really try to work with that diet, sleep, movement, and the whole mindset thing, emotional, mental, spiritual stuff, lay those things down, the basics of that first. Then we get in the details of like, okay, for you in this specific issue, we can, maybe tweak the diet this way, maybe take this supplement, maybe do this type of movement, this type of movement will help with this. We can get into the specifics for maybe whatever that individual needs, how to tweak and what people call biohack, try to figure out how to advance, make it more efficient and effective to, fine tune their program to them where they're at right now. Then later on, it may change. They may feel like, hey, I'm out of that. I feel great. Hormones are balanced, normal cycles. And for a lot of people that I work with have infertility, they have multiple children now. So they'll, keep in contact once in a while, and maybe do certain things, but they really don't need me. For me, it's almost like an education model too. It's important for people to know how to take care of themselves. It's like be fruitful and multiply. And that is really important. And I feel like we need to be in the Hebrew roots movement to be not only with the wealth, but the health and the relationships, to teach these things to our children and hopefully children's children. What it really means to have wealth, health, and good relations all the way around, with mom and dad, with other siblings, and all that type of stuff too. So it all goes together. And the more I'm seeing how the most people I see with financial issues also have health issues, or the health issues may cause financial issues, then that causes relationship issues, and just all of that's so intertwined that it's like, wow, if we would just Shema, hear his voice, turn back to him, his ways, and start walking like Messiah walked, a lot of those relationships start being restored. We start restoring the relationship. How do I love you? Well, I can keep his commandments. That's his love language. And how do I love others? Well, this is how you love others. And we start walking in those things, and we start asking for forgiveness. Maybe we've done someone wrong. We need to repent and ask forgiveness and, forgive others who have offended us. A lot of these things lift off of us as we forgive and whatnot. So those things are restored. Then we start walking in other Torah instructions like, oh, keep the Sabbath, and realize it starts helping. Oh, wow, why are we resting? Why are we putting our trust in him? And it's a principle of, don't fret, don't worry, seek ye first the kingdom, and all these other things will be added to you. And I feel like it all intertwines. The health, the wealth, and the relationships are all, it's just interesting how it all is interconnected to me. So the health is just one of the aspects I am focusing on. But I know even this year, the wealth part, I feel like this issue has been brought to my forefront, and just not only my personal family and sphere, but in the Hebrew roots community and just the body, the remnant. I feel like to use wealth, have that dunamis, that power to get wealth to establish the covenant. Not just to have wealth, but actually to establish the covenant within our family, with our outer family, with our fellowship, to be able to bless others. It is definitely powerful to have the wealth to be able to establish the covenant. And the more I've meditated on that, and he's been really putting that on my heart, I feel like that is going to be a next phase somewhat in developing spiritual. We talk about, walking in the dunamis, and this is an aspect of that a lot of us have never heard of. Yes, we need to have the gifts, words of knowledge, words of wisdom, discerning of spirits, faith and healing, and working in miracles and tongues, interpretation in tongues and prophecy, and all those things are great. Having the eye of Yah, the hand of Yah, the mouth of Yah, and all the fruits that come with that. Yeah, we need all those. But this, for some reason, maybe it's my personal walk right now, this financial thing, and many people are strapped and they can't do what they're called to do because they are trapped financially.
Maybe I said let's not talk about that. Let's talk about it though. Like, what have you been thinking about on the wealth front? What do you think people are doing wrong, mostly, or what are you observing, and how do you think they should try to solve that?
Well, again, back to, I guess, the Torah and how it lays out how we deal with money, just even from that Deuteronomy 18, and just having, and this is, and personally for me, we have such a consumer, like I want, and not seeking first the kingdom and his righteousness, and all these other things that we want will be even added to us. I mean, they're physical things, and some of them are actually good. But it's just a focus change, really. I know for me, it's been a big thing, and what we invest in. And actually, another thing is investing, actually, like the whole thing of giving first fruits, finding other ministries that are doing good things and partner up with them, especially in the Hebrew roots. You see it more, I think we left, a lot of us have come from mainstream, and there was some abuse there on how they dealt sometimes with money and whatnot, and and with that, and I feel like people, felt hurt from that, or maybe abused, or something was wrong. But there's still a principle of giving, and I feel like that in the Hebrew roots movement, a lot of times I have found a lot of people, since I work with the health part of it, unfortunately, the same people that have the health issues, that I find out that the poverty part runs, it's like they go together. It's very interesting. So, and then they're the ones that have the relationship. So I'm not saying it's always the case, but it's so common. It's like, wow, there's something with this. There's some connection here. The same people that have the health issues also have the wealth issues, and also have relationship issues. There has to be something with this. So, I mean, obviously, yeah, step by step, we're moving closer to Yah, but hopefully, as we hear his voice and we start just wherever he leads us and guide us, and for all of us, it may be a little bit different where he starts us off. We may be further along in one way, but in another way, he'll open something up for us. I feel like he's going to start restoring whether it be the relationship part, maybe opening up opportunities to break out of the rat race of the whole idea of, maybe back to that creator type thing. Maybe we can become entrepreneurs and, create something that's of value to the community or whatnot, and not basically have a job in the normal way that people think about that. Maybe the way we look at money as a whole. And I'm preparing to actually present on this a lot more here in the near future about this whole idea of getting back to the pattern of the creator. Maybe we need to create space, because in creation, he actually created space and filled it. And just many miracles where people thought they had nothing, like people that have financial issues. I have nothing, but I have just this oil, And he said, go find as many containers, and dump that. Sometimes we just need a container to put our anointing in, And that may break us free from the very thing that we think we don't have. We have something. We just need to put it in the right container to bless others, to not only pay off our debt, but to live off of. And sometimes I think we're not thinking, we feel like we're trapped and there's nothing we can do. No difference than the whole story of Hagar and the whole idea she's out there with Ishmael, thinks she's going to die, and praying, crying by her son, and Yah sends a messenger, and I believe he sends a messenger to her, an angel, and basically he says, "What's wrong with you?" And of course cries out to the we're going to die here, and basically says, "Hey," it basically opened her eyes to see a well that actually, by the way, was there the whole time. She couldn't see it because of her circumstance. So a lot of us do have circumstances where we're so focused on our circumstances, we don't see the well right in front of us. And so there's a lot of things with finances that are really fascinating, that he has given us things. He's by nature, he's produced men and women to be fruitful. And once we find Yah's purpose, what he's created us for, to produce fruit, it's going to be really, really important. And if we're not lined up with him to produce fruit, or be productive, we're going to feel like, this is not what I should be doing. I feel like I'm not in the will of Yah. But it's by nature for us to be productive and produce fruit and hopefully it lasts and remains. And so taking that idea with even work and calling is like, we're called to produce fruit that remains. What is my skills? Where can I be fruitful and multiply, not just within family, but just even possibly in business as well. And I want to share this, actually, speaking of business, one of the ways this was brought to my attention, I was in Chicago recently at a gay pride parade, and I wasn't there in support of this, obviously, but over the years, I've been doing street ministry at different events, and actually at these events, and there's a lot of hurt people that have been abused that are at these events that need to hear the truth and love. Now, Brother Victor, you interviewed him recently, blown away, awesome interview. By the way, those who are watching this, if you haven't seen Victor's testimony, check that out. But like Vic, I've been heavily involved in street ministry of all types, and even at some controversial type events like a gay pride. You wouldn't think there would be an opportunity to share, but there's absolutely people that are hurting that definitely need to hear the good news. It's the love of Yah that draws people to him. And yes, but you're not compromising in that message either. But this past year was interesting because they had 1 million people in Chicago, 1 million people in support of this gay pride parade. I've been there before, but this was just to see 1 million, to experience 1 million people. So where I was positioned for 2 hours, I mean, this street was enormous. This is up by Wrigley Field, by the way, if anyone knows the Chicago area. And I kind of try to stay away from the parade itself because it's absolutely crazy. Basically, I was ministering a couple blocks away as people were funneling in, and for 2 hours straight, there's a non-stop sea of people going to literally the Broadway, the street where it's called Broadway. It's literally, they were heading that way. It's like, you're going the wrong way, as I am there and just sharing scripture and proclaiming the good news and being able to talk to a few people going in, you just get a burden, your heart just sinks as you're watching this. There was just, I won't get into all of it, but there was just filth. It looked like the circus who came to town. People, I probably seen one too many drag, dressed up. Just for 2 hours, nonstop, a funnel. The biggest street you could think of for 2 hours straight, nonstop, 2 hours, people are walking through. 1 million people. And the thing that Yah really laid on my heart is pay attention. And the two things that he really brought to my attention while I was there is, it's almost a rebuke to the body in some ways. And what I mean by that is, the two things that really stood out to me is, number one, they literally had community. They were like the Tower of Babel, one group. They were unified. And a lot of times in the assembly, we're so divided. And I feel, well, the scripture says, if 1,000, if one can take 1,000 to fight, and 2, 10,000, it's this principle of like, when we're together, we can do more. And it's kind of like in Psalm, 133, where it says, how blessed is, brothers who dwell in unity. It's like the anointing of Aaron, running down the beard of Aaron and whatnot. So there's this anointing in unity. And at the end of that, it's really fascinating because it talks about the commanded blessing of life forevermore. It's like there's power when we're unified, but even that works both ways. When the Tower of Babel, it was unified with one voice, there was nothing that could stop them. And when I saw that, I was like, whoa, these people are unified for a cause in a way that I'd never seen before. But they weren't just unified collectively as a unit. And the other thing he showed me is that they were financially backed. All the businesses downtown, rainbow flags everywhere. And sad to say that this is not a shock, but a lot of the churches, a lot of the synagogues, and the one shocker was a lot of there was some mosque and Muslims walking around in support of this gay pride. I have never seen that before. Matter of fact, I actually did a double take and turned around. I was like, whoa, I've never seen that. This is radical. In the fact that all the businesses, the churches, what would Jesus do? Bracelets everywhere, people wearing crosses left, right, and center. And I'm going, I don't think this is what he would be doing. Anyways, it was almost a rebuke. And from me, the message was like, the body needs to be more unified, and we need to be just like they finance this thing business-wise with their finances, and they literally push their agenda. We should be using our power, the dunamis power that we receive from him, to get wealth, to establish the covenant, and not just for ourselves. And we should be working more in unity. So it really was a strong rebuke, I think, to the body, that I'm like, wow. I'm not saying, we, I believe there needs to be community. And I think this is happening. We're seeing the Ezekiel 37, where there's a shaking and there's kind of a gathering together, and pieces are starting to come together. But hopefully that Ruach needs to enter fully for that thing to become a living army, to stand up against, the adversaries. And I really believe we're at that time where we see the remnant being, like, pieces are starting to come together. Not everything is in order right now, but once we get this, we kind of figured this thing out and actually just walk it out, there is a mighty move of Yah in the Spirit happening, Spirit and truth, where believers are coming together like that unity in Psalm 133. And that anointing is going to flow, and there's going to be a power released in the body that is just going to be light in the darkness that is already here and coming very soon, that we'll be able to shine forth, and that we'll be separate. We won't be connected to the system financially, economically, educationally, rely on them possibly for food, that we're relying on Yah to, be our source of education, our source of these different things. And we can pull away from the things that, Babylon has. And I really believe that is definitely on the horizon. And the Spirit and Truth movement, it's with the Sukkot, the fall feast coming soon. And on the last day of the feast, when Messiah says that whoever, thirst, come to me, and out of his innermost, out of his belly will flow rivers of living water. And I believe it's a time where that body, that remnant, that there's going to be an outpouring, that just like Acts 2 is the, kind of picture of Shavuot, which is the first fruits, a small harvest compared to the latter harvest, that, the ingathering and everything else, that in time outpouring of the Spirit is going to magnify. It's going to be way greater than, Acts 2. And we're going to be walking like Messiah. We're going to be having the faith of Elohim. And we're going to see some pretty amazing things in our physical body, in the financial realm, and all these different, in real life, not just in and metaphysically. I'm talking about in reality. And yeah, that's why that Shema, the first word of the first commandment is Shema, hear, O Israel, hear with the intent to obey. Yeah, it's that time to hear, and if we have ears, hear and turn and repent. So yeah.
So the things you learned at the parade were unity and funding. Do you have any recommendations for this Torah observant movement specifically on unity? And if you don't, that's fine too. Just calling it out is important. But if you do, and also on the quote unquote funding, just like I've talked to people about tithing, and that in our Torah observant thing, it sometimes people are like not into it.
Right. I think there's I still feel like we can give to a cause that's promoting. We see something like, wow, I can't be there, but I want to support what you're doing. Maybe someone's doing missions in another area in different groups, whether it be in India. And I have contact with different people. There's people where I can't go. I want to, we need to help those groups that may be less fortunate, and be hands and feet and support them financially. Just like I saw in Chicago, but in reverse, for the kingdom. But a real practical way, I feel like that is the missing piece, is the Ezekiel 37. We need to pray for an outpouring of fresh anointing upon. When we become believers, I believe that seed is there, and we need to let that seed release and overflow. let our cup overflow. But there is an anointing too, obviously for ministry as well. And I think there's a supernatural grace to have really, not we're talking about the faith of the Almighty, but also supernatural, the love of the Almighty, where the shalom, the peace, the joy, His peace, just have that radiating through us to where we can not compromise on truth, but navigate through our differences in love. But I think it's going to take the Ruach to do this thing. I really believe there needs to be an outpouring of the Spirit. Some things need to get right. We don't have everything. There's some pieces where we're still kind of coming together. And be this is a little controversial, not to be too controversial, but one of the big fights or arguments we have in the movement is actually over time. It's kind of interesting. And I think this is for a reason. Because in Acts 2, we see that they were with one mind in one place. And this Ruach came and just hit them. And, they walked in power. Well, if the enemy could keep us not on the same mind, not in the same place at the same time, we don't have unity. So a lot of the disunity, the enemy has been fighting massively to keep us separated. And that's why I really believe that why the Sabbath is so important, to get us back in sync with the Creator, and the Moedim, because the Moedim actually tell the good news. And as we're being light and sharing the good news and in sync with the Creator, and He's gathering His people together, and we're coming together more and more in sync to declare the good news, the enemy is fighting with everything he has to keep us separated, like trying to keep us, because once the body comes together with one mind in one place, I believe there will be an outpouring of the Spirit we have not yet fully experienced, and we'll be walking in the esteem or glory of the Almighty. I think it's Isaiah 60 or 61 there, where the light will literally be shining forth, and we will be walking as a remnant, as a light to the Israel will finally, the remnant, those are faithful, those who have faith in Messiah and guard his commandments, are going to be literally a light in the darkness. And we're going to be, I really believe there'll be supernatural, which will be kind of normal to those walking in it. It should be normal, that they'll be able to walk out what Messiah said he said, it's better that I go away. And it's mind-boggling to think this. Wait a second. You're telling me, wouldn't it be better if Messiah would be here right now? But Messiah is saying that it would be, in John 16, he says, it is better that I go than I stay. And a lot of times we think, well, that doesn't even make sense. It would be better for him to be here. But he said it would be better for him to go. Because when he left and this Ruach was sent, the enemy's problem just multiplied massively, because through his death and sending the Ruach, his spirit, within each believer, the enemy's problem has been multiplied greatly. And now he is dwelling within all, now it's like, oh, wow, now he's everywhere. He's living and breathing within all these people. And it's fascinating to see what the future holds for those who are going to walk in spirit and truth as one. So this unity thing of time, there's a reason for it. It's not just by happenstance. It's a division issue. But hopefully, as we all cry out for him to, well, maybe we just need to yield for it to be released. For that love of Yah, the shalom and that joy of Yah to really hit us, I think we're going to be able to come together as one, fully as one renewed man in this last day. And it'll be a lot easier. The small differences, we'll have love, and there's small nuances. Every house is going to be a little bit different. We're going to do different things slightly different, and that's fine. There's variations as long as we're using that guideline of the Word to direct our path. I do things in my family. We have traditions in my family we do that aren't necessarily in the Torah, but we felt led that this honors Yah. We're going to do that. I don't necessarily preach that as Torah to other people, but it's something we just do to help encourage our faith. But yeah, I really believe that's the only way this is going to happen is a spiritual revolution within the Hebrew Roots movement, to have that unity that we're really desiring. And a lot of these little fights and things like that. So the appointed times is not by chance a big issue. It's by nature a divisive issue. Just like many of us that used to fellowship on the first day of the week, that now are fellowshipping on the seventh day, the Sabbath. Just by doing that, it became a divisive issue. Just by following that one instruction. So it's by nature divisive. So appointed time issues are divisive by it. You don't have to be divisive. It just is divisive. But if we can get unity on it, for example, if those in the mainstream can wake up to his appointed times and go, "Whoa, the Sabbath thing, what? It's it's not done away with," and the body sinks and it gets in sync with the Creator. Yeah, it will be powerful. And I look forward to it.
Me too. And yeah, this is one of the biggest issues in this movement because, well, most people don't agree. There's like 5 different camps of disagreement or more. I'm sure there are way more than that.
Yeah, I think there are more.
Yeah, there are way more. But I hope that will be, well, we know Yeshua will solve it when he comes back, but maybe we'll get some kind of unity before that. It would be nice.
Yeah, that is definitely the hope, and that's what we see in Scripture. There will be a coming together that we will there will be restoration. So we just need to be yielding, and as the feasts are going around and around, I believe every year as we go through cycle, just like anything else, every year we learn more and more and more. But it's not just learning more in head knowledge, but it's experientially that we just let him we just get closer to him and just truly become just hear his voice, not always speaking during prayer, but just like maybe pause and wait to hear a reply on what we should actually be doing, which is a really...
For someone who's never done the feasts before, let's say they're a believer who just has never done them, what would you say to them? Like, what value have you found in them, if you will?
Yeah, it's well, first of all, it helps you learn the good news. The feast, there's kind of two different. Well, just simply put, the feast tell the good news of Yahushua Messiah. They start in the spring with Passover. It's all about the Lamb. Obviously there's an ancient story, but through the blood of the Lamb, they were passed over if it was applied, and they were saved out of Egypt. And that picture obviously is a picture of Messiah. Through his blood, we are passed over. We have the Feast of Unleavened Bread right on the heels of that, right after Passover in the spring. And it's all about, just now that we're saved, we gotta make an exodus. We're gonna leave our, this Egypt. We gotta be set apart. We gotta, get the leaven out, and get our feet moving and move. Actually, leave. It's something required of us. We can't live the way we used to live. We can't stay where we were. We have to move. So in the feast, it actually teaches this process of what happens to us. Like, we believe in Messiah, we start to walk differently. We walk away from our old life. We get the leaven out, or start to at least. Then we arrive at another feast, Shavuot or Pentecost, Feast of Weeks, all these different names for the same feast. And by the way, these feasts are, technically there are multiple moedim, but feasts, there's three major ones: unleavened bread, first fruits, Shavuot, and Sukkot. Are the three main feasts where a big celebration. Not all the Moedim are feasts. For example, Yom Kippurim, you'll find out it's not necessarily a feast, it's more of a fast or a famine. But I would highly recommend those keeping Yom Kippurim to read Isaiah 58, because that's the type of fast that Yah requires of us. But I'll let you read that on your own time. But back to the feast, Shavuot's all about coming to the mountain to receive. Now that we've been, redeemed and set free, and we're free people, we're moving away from our old life. The question I asked, how are we ought to live? Like, what are we supposed to do? What's the way of life? And Yah gave them his living words from the mountain. The 10 words, the 10 commandments that we ought to live by. Yah, number one, he's first and foremost. How we ought to love Yah, how to love others. And we find out later on in history, in Acts 2, it's anniversary of the giving of the law. Now we have the Ruach being poured out. So the Spirit and truth, we see that theme through and through. And by the way, even in, I believe it's in Deuteronomy, I can't remember the chapter, but or maybe even in the book of Numbers, where the 70 elders are there, and Moses is stressed out, and they bring the 70 elders, and basically the spirit that was on Moses is actually transferred to the 70 elders. It's believed that event is also Shavuot. So it's a picture of the pouring out of the spirit that was on Moses, that was on the 70 to help, lead. So we see that same pattern with Messiah's disciples as well, that the spirit that was on, in and on Messiah, was poured out on his, taught ones, and they walked in leadership, authority. So the idea of spirit and truth, we got not only, we're hearing on Shavuot the words, but we're empowered by the Spirit to actually walk them out. Romans 8, verse 4. And then we come along to the fall time, trumpets. Now, if you know the ancient story, it wasn't too long the children of Israel sinned with the golden calf. And there's times in this walk where we may go ups and downs and whatnot, but there's the whole idea of that. It kind of actually ties into the next festivals, is Yom Teruah, which is the day of trumpets, the day of blasting, the day of shouting. that is all about hearing the voice of Yah. It ties back to the first great commandment, Shema, hear. And by the way, on the mountain, there was shofar blasts, the shofar, and it's actually called the voice of the shofar. So it's tied into the voice. Well, in the book of Revelation, John said, I heard the voice that I heard before. I turned around and looked, and he sees Messiah. So that voice is connected with the voice of the Almighty, the voice from the mountain, and hearing the voice. So Yom Teruah reminds us the voice from the previous feast, Shavuot, on the mountain, to keep the instructions and repent as well. So it's a time of repentance and reflection, and it's a time of the king. It's also called the Day of the King, basically in Hebrew, where the kings of Yehuda, normally they would start their reign from that day, and their reign was figured from that time. It's a whole other topic for chronology, but then you have Yom Kippurim, all about atonement, and coverings, and a little bit different than ransom. But by his blood we are ransomed, we are atoned, we are given wisdom and righteousness, and all these different things, different aspects of what his blood does for us. And so in these feasts, it shows us the patterns of what Messiah has done. It's also Judgment Day. It's kind of like the 10 days of awe, and Yom Kippurim is that final time, like, okay, what is, what's the verdict here? That's why it's such it's kind of an interesting feast, because it's typically afflict your being is understood to be fasting, but it's also in the 50 year, in the year of Jubilee, it's kind of a celebration. So it has two views to it, but it's a time of, Yah dealing with our sins, and a time for us to really bring words and, get things right with him. Another thing, it points in from a New Testament perspective of Messiah being our high priest, the whole book of Hebrews, order of Melchizedek to go into that most set apart place and be an atoning offering for us. So Yom Kippurim, there's so much, all these feasts, there's so much that can be said. Then Sukkot, 7 days of just a big party, basically. A feast of our joy, feast of ingathering, and then you have the 8th day, or Shemini Atzeret, basically a picture of a new beginnings. And eight's a number of kind of new beginnings. Once, kind of like the 7 days of Sukkot are kind of like the 7 days of creation, and once that whole plan, 6 days are allotted for man, the Sabbath is allotted for Messiah, and the kind of this idea of reigning for 1,000 years. But once that's all said and done, it's kind of a picture of a new beginning. Like we take off the tents, and it's kind of a very interesting picture. Now, I do believe we get our new bodies before that period of time, but there's just multiple pictures depending on how. There's so many different layers to the Moedim. But on a practical note, I know for my family, for someone who used to celebrate other holidays, talking about the Christmas question, the Moedim are, not only are they with community, a lot of them are multiple days, and it is way beyond what was celebrated, so-called celebrated in the church. And a lot of these, for example, even the idea of Messiah being born on December 25th, but I'm pretty sure, right, in the Christmas question, once people look at the scripture, we realize, wait a second, the Moedim, Messiah's life revolves around the Moedim. His birth, his death, burial, and resurrection, they actually literally go around the Moedim. And I just want to leave this, so for family-wise, it is a massive celebration. My family absolutely loves it. Children look forward to Sukkot every single year. It's one of our favorite festivals. And so it's absolutely a big party, a time to rejoice, a time to press in with Yah and just food fellowship, and a time to grow. Obviously, Yah's been sharing different insights with different people, and just a time of impartation as well. But one tidbit too, I love the calendar stuff. This may be a controversial thing for those who, one of the things that really shocked me when I came to understand the whole Sabbath thing, and this is something I want everyone to go look at, but one tidbit is when studying the resurrection, a lot of people, I know the main reason why people say they don't keep the Sabbath in the mainstream is like, well, Messiah, Scripture says the first day of the week, he rose, therefore, I keep Sunday and I don't keep the Sabbath anymore. But in my investigation, what Yah has revealed to me when we look at the Scripture is very interesting with the language. And my studying is absolutely mind-boggling. I'll be sharing more on this online in the future. But in the Greek, when we actually read it for what it says, it talks about miaton sabbaton, which literally means the first of the Sabbaths. And it's fascinating that when you study not just the Greek, but all the other languages around the death, burial, and resurrection of Messiah, especially the whole idea of 3 days and 3 nights, people thought Good Friday, Easter, and like try to count that out and go, how is that even working? And the third day and all these different things. But to realize that in every single language, this is the fascinating part for me, when studying, the Greek, the Latin, the German, all these different languages, especially the German is fascinating. The Spanish, the English, all these first versions, they literally tell you it's quite different than our modern versions. But in the German, it's really fascinating because that's when the printing presses started and the scriptures went everywhere. But in the first version of the German scripture, it literally has the word on the day of the resurrection as Samstag. And Samstag in German is Saturday. It literally says Saturday, which then Luther's versions later on, in 1526 version and his later versions, use the word Sabbather in the German instead of Samstag. So some of the versions had Sabbather, which was Sabbath, and some had Samstag, which is Saturday. So it kind of connects this idea with what people know as Saturday, connecting with the Shabbat, which is absolutely fascinating. But you find this in every single translation in the Spanish versions. So in my research of coming across this, and actually I'm not, a lot of this is research that other people have shared with me. And even a couple of years ago, I was praying at one of the feasts, like, Father, is there any more confirmation? And as soon as I got done praying, I got an email. And I opened this email up, and a brother from overseas had been trying to contact me for 5 years for a video I posted. And long story short, I normally don't read emails like this, but I read it and hit a link, and I clicked on it, and I scrolled down, and I just was absolutely blown away. On the information. He had basically been studying all these different versions of the scripture, especially with this part about the resurrection, of all these different translations, manuscripts, and first Bibles, all languages around the world. And I was absolutely flabbergasted to look at what I already knew from just the Greek, but now seen in all the other languages. So he sent all that information along to me. So I'd like to share it over time because it is mind-boggling to realize, wow, Messiah did all his miracles on Shabbat, because Shabbat's all about rest and restoration. There's this idea of the seventh day where we're hoping, for those who are asleep or dead to, be raised to newness of life, and put on, their new body and reign with him 1,000 years, that his resurrection almost mirrors what is prophesied for the future for us. And to me, that is absolutely fabulous to realize Messiah's miracles on the Sabbath. The reason why he was doing them, it foreshadows what the Sabbath is all about, rest and restoration. That's why he was doing so many miracles on the Shabbat. But no wonder the scripture says, remember the Shabbat. It is very important in the life of Messiah and obviously the Moedim and just with everything. So it's a fascinating piece that holds a lot of people back from actually keeping the Shabbat.
Would you like to add anything else about, I don't know, anything?
Yeah, I mean, just for those who are listening in, just realizing if someone's right in the fence, maybe they don't know, whether it be, first of all, if they're a believer in Messiah, they've had faith in Messiah, but they don't know what to do. Like kind of where I was at. I highly just encourage you to ask the Father. Just ask him. Ask him, what is it? And what is this thing with your instructions, the Torah? Ask him. Just literally pray and ask him to reveal this truth to you. I believe he will reveal this to you. And when he reveals it to you, be obedient to that and hear his voice. Repent, Shema, and follow him. And normally he will lead you step by step. It may not be the same place where I entered in. It may be somewhere else. But as we listen to his voice and we just follow, because it happened with me, one thing at a time. He revealed one thing and another thing, and now this, now that. I need to repent about this. I need to get this relationship right. One thing after a time. He basically was transforming me, and I didn't realize it at the time, but it was just kind of getting the junk out and more just stripping the stuff that needed to go. So if those people are hearing this, I just pray that they would just press in. If they need to repent, turn to him. I know that word repent, a lot of people don't know what that means. We have the same, a lot of people use the same language or vocabulary, have different definitions, so you have to define everything, but it just basically means turning back to Yah, his ways. Sin is just the violation of his instruction. Anything not of faith is considered sin. If we know to do right and do wrong is considered sin. So when we turn to his ways, his instruction, and we have faith and not doubt, when we do what's right, we're walking in his ways. And I feel like that is a major game changer, just that one step of obedience at a time, just to hear his voice and to press in. Also, a big thing is just if you have never received, for those in the Hebrew Roots movement, a lot of people are wanting a power, that dunamis, to operate as a witness, whether it be to other people at work, maybe it's in their family, maybe it's out in the street, or wherever they're at, to just be a witness. And however that is, to walk in the giftings of Yah, just pray that the Yah would help you release not only the spirit that's already within you as a believer, but that dunamis power would actually come upon. And I don't want to. I have a lot more to say about that, because I had some events that go even way beyond what this conversation is about that dunamis coming upon that. If we cry out to him, he will sometimes physically touch our bodies in a powerful way, and it will change everything. We will literally walk completely different. We will definitely be able to see that the disciples were walking with like substance more than just words. Paul said, I didn't come with you with fancy words. I came with you with power, dunamis, and it's actually tangible.
Do you want to get into any of that happened to you?
I can share, and you can cut wherever you need to or whatnot.
Okay. Tell us about this. What experience did you have with the Spirit, with the power of the Spirit? The dunamis.
I guess one word for Greek and for the authority, and one for power, and we need both of them. And authority is just as awesome as the power, but really it all operates through Yah. So I was in prayer a little over a year plus ago. In a prayer meeting, and literally in that prayer meeting, I will say this, but I'll back up just a second. I've been in some deliverance type thing where people really had, and some of this was health related. They had some health issues, prayed over them. Sometimes if anyone's ever seen manifestations of people having major issues, I mean, demonic stuff going on, it's really real. That's all I can say. Long story short, being involved with some of that, I've already experienced some of those type of things where people literally manifest. But being able to break that off of people in the name of Messiah, literally break off the spirit of fear or anxiety, tell that spirit to go in Yahushua's name. Spirit of doubt, spirit of death, spirit of infirmity, to go in Yahushua's name. And just those things would break off of people. But like, there's always different levels. All I can say. Long story short, I was in prayer, and I was like, literally, the only way I could say it is almost like lightning hit me. Almost like lightning. Fire. Lightning, fire, I don't know how else to explain. It was extreme. All over my body. And I had never quite, I mean, I had felt some of this in deliverance before, like maybe in the hands or whatnot, but this was all over the body. Well, it was interesting. And quite honestly, from my belly out of my mouth, I literally spoke with another tongue that I have never heard. Matter of fact, I don't know, I was more shocked than anything. I had never experienced anything. I mean, I mentioned earlier that I was on the street preaching and someone heard me in my language, but I never experienced, like, this was completely different. Matter of fact, it came out like a shofar blast. It was extremely loud. Matter of fact, it scared me. That's how loud it was. But well, meanwhile, I'm having like lightning like hit my hands. I thought at first I thought I was like, in the physical, I was like, oh man, I need a neck adjustment or something needs to go on here. I think something's going on, because I felt lightning over my face, my eyes, my hands. It started going around my stomach, all over my body, like just, I mean, it was like electricity. And literally out of my belly, it just came like it, and I was like, whoa. And then this went on for a while, and I'm like, what is going on here? I didn't even know what to think. Long story short, I get home to my wife, and I'm trying to, and I'm gonna be honest with you, as my understanding of that has, that challenged me from my understanding, from an analytical point of, the Greek and whatnot, different parts of 1 Corinthians 12 through 14 there. I've looked at it in detail.
Because before that, did you not think tongues were like a thing? You thought it was just the language translation?
Yeah, I thought,
something like
I
that.
thought for surely, they were speaking in a known language, or possibly they were speaking in their language, but the miracle was the hearing in another,
like what happened with you
on the street. And maybe that's what happened. I thought, but then I will say, when I was studying it, I was kind of perplexed by chapter 14, which seemed quite different than chapter 12. Because in chapter 14, it seemed like when in chapter 14, it says that when you speak in tongues, you speak mysteries and no one understands but Elohim. And well, that's interesting, because the speaking in tongues before, it was a sign, it was supposed to be for those who don't believe. But if in 14, no one understands but Elohim, how can it be a sign to them? So I was perplexed. I was like, okay, wait a second. There seems to be two different things going on here. How can this be, so I was wrestling over that, and this didn't happen. And it was like, okay, there is something else. And I'm going to be honest with you, I still at this point don't fully understand all of what I'm
When was this? Was this pretty relatively recently?
Yes, it was August 14th of last summer, to be exact.
What was leading up to it? Were you praying? Were you fasting? Anything like that?
All the above, and doing repentance, major repentance, getting just anything. Actually, it's funny, because I had done kind of like I did when I said I had a bonfire and burnt stuff when I was a kid. Yah through a dream had showed me something that was in my possession that he wanted. And this was more than just a book. Like, if anyone knows me, I love books. So I have books everywhere. So I had a dream that there was all these books, and I went, and there was one book sticking out of this case. And of all the books, it was a book that meant something greatly to me. Like, if people would come visit my little library, I have a lot of books. So for someone to be able to pick out this book, you would have to know me really well. I mean, of all my books, that one had a special, kind of like, wow, this book is more than a book. I'll put it that way. It's a system of thought and whatnot. But it has a lot of it's one of these health books that have a lot of, especially in alternative health, there is a lot of stuff I would warn people like, yeah, you need to be very careful. When you're in alternative health, there is new age everywhere. There's this alternative stuff that you do not want to open yourself up to the spirit realm or becoming, new age is all about, basically, it's very similar to Satanism, where you are basically the Almighty. It's very self-centered, I'll put it that way. Long story short, this book, in my dream, when I saw it pulled out, I understood what the Almighty was communicating to me. Is like, because my cry and my prayer was, I want to know you at a deeper level than I currently am. Actually, that's still my prayer even right now. That prayer hasn't changed very much. It's still pressing in. I want to know you more. I want to know you more. I want to see your face. I want to, just pressing in. That book was pulled out, and I understood that to mean he wanted, like, you want to know me. There can't be nothing in between me and you. And this one thing, it was a whole system of thought. Well, I wake up from my dream, I find everything. It wasn't just that, because that book was really a system of thought, actually with natural health. And I took everything I found on a topic, videos and the book itself, took it outside and burnt it in fire. I'll put it that way. Burnt the thing, basically letting the Almighty going, I'm in. I am absolutely, so basically, I had been in a full year of just consecration. Like, he would reveal something, get your relationship right with this individual, get your relationship right with this individual. And it literally was, when I thought the repentance was over, it was just getting started. I was like, wow, I have all this stuff that I thought, I'm thinking I'm okay. And he's just revealing little nuances of different things with, family members and attitudes and all these different things. And so as I'm refining all this stuff, and obviously same time doing ministry, I'm actually involved in that. It was just an absolutely power encounter that it got just more and more interesting.
It sounds like being baptized by the Spirit.
It was very interesting. Matter of fact, to this day, it has not gone away. Like, as I'm speaking to you right now, I can tangibly feel it on my hands and all over my body. It hasn't gone away.
Really?
Yes, really.
Like that electric feeling. Did it lessen after that? So
it sometimes will lessen. Actually, it's really interesting. Now, like, when certain things happen, if I'm at the grocery store, it's just very interesting how things will show up. I'll be at the grocery store, and all of a sudden, what I feel on my body or in my stomach will literally go to a certain part of my body. Like, it'll literally go out to my ears. And I've like messed up cauliflower ears, but it just goes out to my ears, and it's so noticeable. It's like, oh, what is going on in my ears? And of course, all of this is new to me, and I feel like Father, I don't understand what's going on. I mean, this is a foreign language. I'll put it that way. I'm like, ears. Okay, I'm hearing. What do you want me to hear? What's going on? And I literally look in front of me at the store. The guy in front of me has hearing aids in both ears, and I'm like, okay, all right, I'm gonna get in a conversation. And of course, I get in a conversation with this guy, and I'm right. I mean, it's nice knowing this. Well, I'm get in a conversation, get a chance to pray for him right then and there. We get in a natural conversation. He's like, I'm sorry, I'm slow, and da-da-da. These hearing aids, I can't hear this thing, and it's so loud in here. And I was, oh, yeah, how long have you had that hearing issue? Da-da. We just got in the conversation naturally. It was just It's like, do you mind if I pray for you? For healing for your ears? And he says, sure, pray for me. Yeah, I love that. And I just, pray for him right then and there. And this guy just starts breaking out in a sweat. And I'm like, okay, Father. So this has been awesome in the fact of ministry and learning the language and I'm not saying this all, I mean, all this is new to me. This is absolutely new to me, but it's actually made me look at the scripture quite differently before. And there's things that I'm gonna be honest with you, so new to. It's like, Father, I'm just step by step being pro Torah and pro spirit, and walking in both of these has been just really interesting. So I feel like when I hear testimonies like Vic's the other week ago, I mean, I can relate to a lot of, like, wow, okay, the stuff I'm experiencing is just really, I don't even know how to explain it. It's been just, it gets more and more, it goes, the Almighty is more awesome than we can imagine. It's the only thing I can say. He is more radically creative and awesome that if we have a narrow view of how he operates, he will just blow that right out of the water. He operates in ways that he is so creative, and it's like, whoa. Even the dreams that we have, the more I understand now how he communicates through dreams, it's like literally, here's an artist who sculpt, not all dreams are from Yah, but sometimes it could be our flesh or maybe the enemy. But if Yah gives you a dream, it's literally a masterpiece. He sculpts this little dream to give you what you need for that season right then and there. And if you're paying attention, it could be an impartation of direction in your life. And it's a masterpiece of art. And sometimes we dream and don't even realize he's speaking with us. And so I pay attention a lot more to those dreams that I feel like, oh, he's speaking to me. Oh yeah, this is crazy. Maybe I might as well share this. The night before this event happened, where I was hit with lightning, and by the way, the week after that, I was hit with lightning again, and the intensity was all night long, all day long, and the intensity was quite interesting. It was. It's hard to explain. That's all I can say. But long story short, the day before this event took place, I had a dream. And just a little context, there's something called pho. I don't know if you're familiar with it. Find it clean at restaurants is a little bit of chore, but normally it's a really good soup. And for me, it's been therapeutic. Whenever I've been sick in the past, sometimes it would help me heal. So it was like an emotional healing. So it gives context to this dream a little bit more. So I had this dream, and I was walking through a mall, which I thought was a mall. I was like, oh, what's going on here? And I saw this room. I was like, oh, what business is this? And it looked like a children's classroom. Like, it was bright yellow, like with almost like the ABCs on the wall. I'm like, this is a weird business. And these two guys these guys were huge. They were like super tall. They didn't say a word in the dream. They didn't say nothing. They just showed me stuff. They said, like, I was like, what type of business is this? They had me sit down, and I was like, okay, this is kind of weird. And they didn't talk. They just pointed at things. I was like, and all of a sudden I saw in the back, I'm like, oh my goodness, they have pho. They have pho. And they had three bowls, because there was two of them and me. And the dream, and they're showing me they do artwork and whatnot. I'm like, oh, this is interesting. And I'm thinking I have no money, so I'm gonna have to get up and leave this thing. But I see that pho, and I see they're starting to pour the pho in these three. And the dream slows down, and they're pouring this pho. This is beef pho, by the way. It's like beef, and it's funny because in the dream, we're getting ready to eat. I'm getting ready to take this pho, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is awesome. And all of a sudden, my thought was like, oh, is this clean? Is this clean? And I'm like, oh my goodness. Like, I'm gonna ask, is this clean? So I grab the meat that's in my mouth, and the meat is stuck to my tongue. And I start pulling it. I'm like, oh my goodness, this meat is stuck to my tongue. And I pull it, and I wake up from the dream. And I'm like, what is going on? I was like, what? I mean, it was so weird of a dream. I was like, okay, pho, which meat stuck to my tongue. I can't get it off. These two individuals, which I believe were almost like messengers in this dream, it was so crazy, were teaching. I'm in a kindergarten classroom. Like, we're taking you to kindergarten here. And that night, I wake up that night, this event happens. And I'm like, it was kind of like that whole, like I said, when I was wrestling and had deja vu when I went, the day right before I walked on I had it like, this trash can was here. I was telling my brother the whole stuff. I was like, oh my goodness, I remember all this. And so sometimes these deja vu, maybe dreams that we had, and like it comes back to us, is like, oh, I remember that dream. And so it was wild.
So did that happen before you then had the speech?
Yes, right before.
It's
the night before.
It's like they're giving you this, you're ingesting the spirit and speaking it out. I don't know if that's what you thought.
Yeah, and even me,
or whatever,
a lot of times is very strengthening. And I couldn't get it off my tongue. It was, and so I have too many stories to tell on this that are just crazy. So I had a client who was dealing with some stuff. And of course, this whole thing is speaking. And for me, this wasn't, and I'll be honest with you, it was, I've been to a lot of groups that I don't know how else to say this. I've heard speaking in tongues and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, what, I don't know how to say it. I don't want to judge, but some of it, I take it with a grain of salt. You know, I'll just put it that way. And so that was my bias. The way I hadn't perceived some of it. I'm like, judge people by their fruit, and a lot of the fruit I saw from certain groups, I'm like, yeah, I don't think so. But of course, at an event like this happens, you're like, I don't even know how to explain this and what is going on here. This kind of busts my theology at the time, and I don't know what's going on. Someone was dealing with a very serious addiction, or a serious issue that they weren't willing to confess, but I got a phone call. And they basically said, hey, this has been going, and actually it had already been revealed to me in a dream that this had been going on. So I actually knew for a period of time this had been going on. And they finally confessed, like, you're right, this has been going on. And so I gave them some instructions to do. And I said, when you repent, call me back and I'll pray for you. And we're going to try to break this spirit off, because this was a pretty serious issue. And I'm driving at the time. I'm on a speakerphone. And I go, as soon as I hang up from telling them, go get rid of this stuff, call me back when you have repented, and renounce it and repent of it, destroy anything associated with it. That's what I told them to do. And so I hung up and I go, hallelujah, in English. And then out of nowhere, I'm speaking in tongues. I'm like, oh, and it scared me so much that I almost lose control of my vehicle. I'm like, oh my goodness. And I had to pull over. I'm like, what is going on right now? And I couldn't even, I was like, I have no idea of course, I don't know what I'm saying. I mean, literally, I'm like, but I was like, what is going on? Well, after that happened, I was like, okay. I was kind of on guard, like, okay, what is going to happen? And as soon as I get done speaking, I start driving again, and I get a phone call back. That guy's ready to talk. He's like, actually, he texts me. He's like, I am ready to pray. And he calls me. And I'm like, that was interesting. So literally, I start praying and just breaking the chains off of this certain situation, just over the phone, just casting this spiritual attack off this person. And it was powerful. And I was like, what is going on? And I'm thinking to myself, okay, I don't even know what's going on here. This is kind of, and I've been invited to different Bible studies, and I would go, and again, this would happen again, like where I would just speak at it. I mean, I was by myself. I'd be driving, and now I kind of like, I'm like, okay, it's almost like a war. Like, okay, that's not. Maybe it's not. Maybe I need to be on guard. We're about ready to go down, and I go to these studies, and obviously it's an opportunity to share. But since then, it's been over a year plus, so it's a little bit more. I'm getting used, well, kind of. Some of the different things of that one issue. Then there's the whole revelatory thing, which is another game-changing area that has been just mind-boggling for me. So it's been amazing.
We only have 3 minutes left of film for both of us now. So I don't know if we can get into that. I'd like to. Yeah, unless you think you can say it in a minute or two.
It's probably too much right now, but I don't know if we have any other health questions. Were there more health questions?
I don't think we even have time for. The only other thing she had. Wait, I want to know what book that was. Will you share the book that you threw out?
Yeah, I will.
What is it? What was it?
It's Eat, Move, and Be Healthy by Paul Chek.
Okay. Then good. I mean, maybe people need to check themselves before reading that, or if they've read it, maybe they need to rethink things.
Yeah, it was definitely a. If one would do research on that individual, they're obviously not a Christian. And a lot of the educational stuff, I don't expect a lot of people to be believers. So sometimes I'm so used to filtering, like I read different things, I just filter it. And so I have a lot of books that people would look and go, wow, you got books on this, like I have books on different religions, because since I'm a street evangelist, not that I study other religions, but sometimes in past I used to study religions just to have a point of reference, talking points, to understand what they believe and whatnot, to know how to share the good news with them or whatnot, and just other different things. So I'm used to having. And so if someone didn't know me and why I had a certain book, there was reasons for it, but this one was brought to my attention. I may have thought about it, but it was brought to my attention. I was like, okay, fine, it's done. And if there was any other, and I even is there anything else, right? And there may be something in the future you would bring to my mind, but for some reason that one was offensive or enough that where it blocked. And I will say, knowing about that individual who wrote the book, you don't have to look far and to know why. It's just two worlds.
We only have 30 seconds left, so I can't believe it, but we've run out of space.
Okay.
So I have to say, Dr. Carr, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for inviting me. It's a privilege to share a little bit of my journey. So yeah.
I created a Patreon so I could kind of help support this thing, but what it has morphed into is a incredibly fun once a month digital gathering where we all the patrons and I get together and talk about the Torah, talk about our lives, talk about questions we might have, problems we're running into. And so if that sounds like something you are interested in, or if you just want to support the podcast, then join our Patreon. It's patreon.com/thelifewithluke. Thank you so much for watching.